Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has ancestor of Uchiha legacy. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Storyteller and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The fourth Hokage's legacy. Naruto was well aware he was disliked by a majority of the Konoha population, hated even. However, even though they hated him, he was never harmed. He received no more than an icy glare, insults behind his back, and shunning. His safety was ensured by the Anbu guards the Sandaime ordered to protect him, but it still hurt emotionally. The old man would have prevented his people from hurting the boy's heart if he could, but to enforce a law like that was impossible. Not to mention until now, those who held a grudge against the Kyuubi never tried anything against its container in fear the demon itself would run amok. The people of Konoha weren't crazy, but even the Hokage couldn't keep an eye on every shinobi. And even if he could, there was always that one individual that would spell trouble over Konoha's Jinchuriki. Danzo was a prime example. Nevertheless, Sarutobi Hiruzen counted his blessings. He didn't yet need his Anbu to get rid of those stupid enough to harm Naruto. However, that night changed everything. Aragayama was a survivor of the Third Shinobi War, one of the first few Injutsu users in Iowa. He retired from his profession shortly after the war ended because he wasn't just a regular seal master who worked in the village, researching and producing seals for a living was not for him. He was a frontline seal master who worked as backup on the battlefield. His forte was fast execution of a seal rather than the complexity of it, allowing him to support his comrades. However, no one was fast enough to deal with Konoha's yellow flash. He was thoroughly humiliated when Namikaze Minato slaughtered the Iowa force before he could even pick a brush. The only reason he survived the encounter was because he was hiding under his comrade's corpse, suppressing his chakra. He would never forget the eyes that appeared to glow a brilliant shade of delphinium when they gazed in his direction. His breath had hitched, and he'd wondered if the sense of inevitable death was a shared feeling among his comrades in face of the swift and deadly yellow flash. But Yama did not hold a grudge against Namikaze Minato like the rest of his village. He found it to be pointless, since people on both sides were dying. Instead, he chose to admire him as a seal master. The man was a genius, and Yama was envious. He was talented in sealing, having spent his whole life mastering it, but he would never come close to Namikaze's level. The saying talent hits a target no one else can hit, while genius hits a target that no one else can see, couldn't be truer. Namikaze Minato set his own unreachable target, creating seals no one previously thought to be possible. Yama retired knowing it was time to give up chasing Namikaze. The gap between them was too large to be closed, and chasing the dream was pointless. However, in his fifth year of retirement, news spread like wildfire that Namikaze Minato died when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha. Rumors started floating, most were nonsense, but one caught his interest. Namikaze Minato had given up his life using a seal against Kyuubi, and there was a possibility Konoha created another Jinchuriki. It was obvious to say Yama was curious. A high-level seal master wouldn't die sealing a Bijuu so long as it was performed right. Namikaze dying from a mistake was a far-fetched idea considering many masters before him had succeeded. That meant only one thing. Namikaze Minato had used a special kind of seal that required such a sacrifice. Konoha was probably the only village that would never flaunt their Jinchuriki. In fact, all that anyone knew was that Konoha possessed a Kyuubi and that there were two Jinchuriki before the most recent one. The first fact was common knowledge. The second fact could be known if one calculated a person's lifespan. His curiosity about the last seal Namikaze Minato ever created grew, and he decided to pay Konoha a visit. He had to find Konoha's third Jinchuriki, the Yondaime Hokage's legacy. It was no easy feat sneaking into Konoha, especially with the barrier created by the Uzumaki clan protecting the village. He would have had to devote a lot of time and research into exploiting a weak spot, but fortunately, he found someone willing to trade information. In exchange for a safe route, all he had to do was hand over his life's work to Konoha's most dangerous missing nin, Orochimaru. It was almost an unfair exchange, but seeing the last work of Namikaze himself was worth it. Once he was able to sneak in, it was a piece of cake. Haragayama might be a top seal master of Iowa, but he never made a name for himself, considering Namikaze Minato and Jiraiya of the Sannin were hogging all the fame. He didn't even bother with a henge, dressing like a civilian was enough to do the trick. Finding info about their Jinchuriki was surprisingly easy, and all it took was sitting in front of a dango shop. When 6-year-old blonde boy with blue eyes walked past, civilians and shinobi alike gave him a wide berth while breaking into a hushed whisper. Yama easily overheard one of the customers in the dango shop mutter monster under his breath. Bingo. Yama didn't cheer mentally for long, because he soon realized this hated child couldn't be walking around without supervision. Anbu had to be near to keep an eye on the child. It was the standard protocol for all non-adult Jinchuriki, and this child was no exception. If his experience of watching over Han was anything to go by, then this child was shunned by his own village out of fear. How stupid. What if the child snapped and went berserk? Iwa had learned the hard way with Han. If not for Raushi and Inoki subduing the young Jinchuriki, Iwa would have done the equivalent of suicide and embarrassingly wiped themselves off the map. Now, though, Iwa learned to deal with their Jinchuriki by letting them get away from the village, or in other words, voluntary exile. But forget about his village and their Jinchuriki for now. He had to think of how to get to the child without Anbu noticing. He was a simple Takubetsu jounin, so taking on Konoha's Anbu was definitely suicide. He had to be extremely careful when following the child and his guards, since it was easy to alert them accidentally. He observed them from afar for days and found Anbu didn't follow the child 24/7. Surprisingly, because they couldn't. Once in a while, the child would prank the villagers for attention or to deal out some form of payback. When the boy would flee or hide, the Anbu had a hard time following him, even with his bright hair color and vibrant orange shirt. The boy could be stealthy when he wanted to be, it seemed. Of course, Anbu didn't lose him for long, maybe a few minutes or so, but that was plenty enough time for Yama. On his 6th day in Konoha, he planted a number of seals in the main marketplace and waited for the show to begin. He was not disappointed when the Jinchuriki executed his latest prank. A pink-colored smoke spreading throughout the marketplace. It was harmless, but the rose smell was strong enough to make even women flee to escape the sickening sweet smell. Yama himself almost hurled but refrained because today's prank would serve his cause well. Once again, Anbu lost their charge, and this time it was longer than usual because of the smoke and smell. In the same time, Yama activated his seal which caused the other side of the marketplace to explode. It was harmless in that it was mostly smoke and sound. It was designed to be a distraction with minor damage and no casualties, so they would be more inclined to believe it was the Jinchuriki's prank. Anbu, of course, thought it was their charge or a possible enemy ninja, but for a moment, Yama feared that the Anbu would linger. He grinned as they rushed away, allowing him to duck into the small alleyway he saw the boy run in earlier. Yama couldn't believe his luck when he saw the Jinchuriki still there, hopping up to reach the rooftop of a building nearby. The Jinchuriki was obviously curious about the explosion. Wonder what happened over there? Enemy ninja. His eyes widened when he felt pain on the back of his head, and then everything went black. Yama sighed in relief as he hoisted the Jinchuriki on his back. He then applied a Jinjutsu over the child, so he looked like a little brunette girl with fair skin. He quickly retreated back to the crowded street a bit further away from the market, where the civilians were busy fussing over the Jinchuriki's latest prank. Yama stiffened and turned away when he saw a woman with a son glance at him curiously. His eyes briefly caught the red and white fan symbols stitched into their clothes and flinched. Uchiha. Shit. The seal master turned around slowly, faking a kind fatherly smile. Ah, good afternoon, Uchiha-san, he greeted the Uchiha woman genially. What a fine day, isn't it? Uchiha Makoto raised an eyebrow. It had been a while since anyone greeted an Uchiha so politely like this man did. She had called out to him simply because she sensed something off about him, or was it the child? Now that she thought about it, it was probably her just being paranoid. Good afternoon to you, too. The breeze is indeed very nice today. Is that why your daughter fell asleep? She asked with a smile on her lips. The man nodded stiffly. Yes, she also exhausted herself playing in the playground today, he added, mentally cursing himself for engaging in a conversation with an Uchiha. It was truly fortunate he hadn't used a henge at all on himself. If he had, she would be even more suspicious. I see, she said softly. Then I will be on my way, she muttered as she turned to walk away, but Sasuke stopped her with a frown. Ha-san. Makoto tugged on Sasuke's hand, gently dragging him with her. Not now, Sasuke. If there's anything you want to buy, it'll have to wait, she said as the father-daughter pair walked away from them. But, Ka-san. Sasuke whined. That man lied. Sasuke, the Uchiha matriarch warned. Don't accuse someone you just met, especially a civilian at that. They were in a bad enough position in the village as it was, and it would be bad if rumors of Sasuke accusing civilians as liars spread. Besides, why would he lie to me? She asked logically. Sasuke frowned, then muttered, yes, Ka-san. Obediently, he followed his mother back to the Uchiha compound. Sasuke recalled the only playground in Konoha was not currently usable. When he and Itachi had walked around the park yesterday, there was a repair in progress sign near the playground. Itachi was shaking his head when he said someone named Guy accidentally ran into it or something along that line. So that man lied to his mother about his daughter exhausting herself playing, but Ka-san was right. The man had no reason to lie, or did he? Ka-san wouldn't listen, so he'd have to tell his brother later. Naruto blinked his eyes open and looked at his surroundings. He was in a large room with lots of boxes and bottles, a sake warehouse. He crinkled his nose at the scent. He hated the smell of sake as it reminded him of the drunks that said unpleasant things to him. Naruto startled when he set his eyes on a stranger smiling at him with a genuine smile. The man had long, brown hair and green eyes, and his build was similar to the Anbu he had seen before with a dog mask. "Hello, kid, are you alright?" Yama asked. Now that he had a close look at the child, Yama could see the similarity between him and Namikaze. Iwa would freak if they knew the Yondaime Hokage had managed to procreate and turn the boy into a Jinchuriki. "Who are you?" "I am Uzumaki Naruto." The Hokage had told him that it was common courtesy to give his own name before asking for someone else's. "Uzumaki?" He raised an eyebrow at the name. Yama pointed at his chest and said, "Me? My name is Hiragi, so just call me Hiragi-san." His family name was pretty common, so telling the child was harmless. "Hiragi-san," Naruto tested the name. "I think I will call you Oji-chan instead." Yama sighed. He deserved it since he was the same age as the Yondaime. "Fine." Naruto eyed Yama curiously. Why am I here?" he asked. He grinned at that and said, "Oh, you were knocked out by a bad person. I saved you and brought you here." If his observation was correct, this child had never been attacked before and incredibly lonely. If someone saved him, they could easily earn his trust. "You're safe here, Naruto-kun." And for added bonus, he ruffled the child's soft, spiky hair. This was the moment of truth. If a shunned Jinchuriki was touched, they would either lash out or welcome the affection as a sign of trust. As expected, the child looked at him admiringly. "Thank you, Oji-chan." Yama smirked inwardly. That had been easier than he thought it would be. "You're welcome, Naruto-kun." Then he added after a beat, "But it seems the enemy ninja did something to you," he lied smoothly. "Eh? I can fix it for you though," Yama assured the child. "Don't worry and just leave everything to me." Naruto paled at the thought of an enemy ninja having done something horrible to him. Now Yama rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a storage scroll. He unsealed a wooden board the size of an adult with a seal array carved into it. Naruto watched the unsealing in awe. "That's so cool, Hiragi Ajichan." "What is that?" "Ninjutsu." Hiragi smirked. "Not quite his father's child, huh? This is Ninjutsu. It's one of the most complex shinobi arts. See this array here?" He tapped the board on the ground. "You use hand seals to mold chakra for ninjutsu, well in Ninjutsu we use these to tell chakra what to do. Is it hard?" Naruto's eyes were shining with glee. "Depends on you." He didn't see anything wrong with indulging the child. He needed Naruto's full cooperation anyway. "You have to be good in arithmetic, chakra theory, and calligraphy basically." Naruto crinkled his nose. "I don't like any of that. Can that even be used like cool ninjutsu?" Hiragi snorted. The Yondaime Hokage was a magnificent seal master. The next thing Hiragi knew, Naruto had latched his small body onto his arm like a koala. "Teach me." He gave the seal master his puppy eyes. "Please." Hiragi faltered. He had discovered another scary way to use Namikaze's azure eyes. I will fix you first, then we can talk about this again, okay, kid?" "Okay." Naruto agreed as he hopped off of Hiragi, bouncing on his feet. The seal master sweat dropped at the sight of the hyper kid and silently thanked God that he was no longer an Iwa shinobi. Namikaze surely knew how to pick a wife. The rumor of his lover being the habanero was true, it seemed. The two monsters of Konoha procreated. This kid would be one hell of a shinobi. Then again, it was none of his business. He only wanted the data of Namikaze's last work and then he was going to get out of Konoha faster than you could say ninja. "Now lay down here, Naruto-kun, and take off your shirt." Naruto obeyed the instruction but shuddered when his skin touched the cold wood. "Now what, Hiragi Ajichan?" he asked. Hiragi smiled. "Just relax, you're going to fall asleep and when I finish you will be as good as new." "Okay." Naruto cheered. Hiragi formed seals for a sleep-inducing jinjutsu and Naruto quickly fell asleep. Finally, he sighed in relief. Pretending to be a kind uncle is exhausting. He grumbled under his breath, "Now let me see the last work of Namikaze Minato." He activated the seal array on the board, causing a seal to appear on Naruto's stomach. He gaped at the sight. Unbelievable, no wonder he died to make this. The seal was different than any other seal he'd seen before. There was not just one seal, there was 3 layers of seals. At first glance, it would look like only one seal, but a top-notch seal master would know there were 2 other seals. The first seal was the main seal that tied the Jinchuriki and his Bijuu together. The second and third, however, would be triggered in certain circumstances. Hiragi would bet they were failsafe seals and, considering the main seal and the Bijuu it held, it made Hiragi wonder what kind of seal those were. No one ever made a failsafe seal for a Jinchuriki. Then again, villages that had Jinchuriki didn't have Namikaze Minato. Hiragi couldn't suppress his growing curiosity and envy of the last work of the Yondaime. He badly wanted to unravel the seal, but that would have required him to be on the same level as Namikaze Minato or risk his life. He cackled at the thought. "If I died here it would be justified. I was supposed to die when he slaughtered my team anyway, it would be an honor to die for my research." He wondered if this was his sanity wavering again, one of the many reasons for his retirement. Then again, why would he care for the consequences? The worst thing that could happen would be unleashing the Kyuubi in Konoha, and that would only be giving Konoha what it deserved. Naruto would never have been so vulnerable and easily swayed if they hadn't shunned him. It was probably charity to the brat to let him have his own revenge. But that in mind, Hiragi continued his work, but first sealed everything he cherished inside a special storage scroll. It was more durable than the average storage scroll in that it could withstand explosive tags and other harming elements. Nothing weaker than a Biju Dama could destroy it, he supposed as he began to work. Kyuubi perked up, growling when he saw the Yondaime walk up to his cage. "What do you want, Yondaime?" "Someone is trying to tamper with the seal," the blonde Hokage muttered. "I don't know why, but it activated the failsafe temporarily." Kushina then appeared beside him. "It activated mine too," she growled. "Who's the fool? If I get my hands on the guy, I'll kill him." Kyuubi rolled his eyes. "You're dead, Kushina," he pointed out with a deadpan tone. The second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi glared at her ex-prisoner. "Thank you for reminding me," she growled, "but what happened to my son?" He was her main concern. Minato paled when he saw Kyuubi's chakra leak from his cage. "Kyuubi. You." The Biju bared his fangs. "Not my doing, Yondaime. In case your memory is as bad as your mate's, your seal is designed so the brat can borrow my chakra." The fox pointed out. "I did not will even a small fraction of it to leak into his system, so if it kills the brat and me too, you have no one to blame but yourself." Minato grit his teeth. "You really?" His eyes widened. "Kushina. Your chakra." Kushina looked at herself. "My chakra, it seeped into Naruto's. Mine too. What's happening? Is the failsafe seal broken?" He quickly went to check the seal on the Kyuubi cell. "This one is safe, at least for now." Kushina breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good, I checked the failsafe chakra too, and it doesn't seem like it's going to break but. Minato asked, dreading her next words. "But what?" "Some of our chakra and memories has seeped through because of this, I don't know how it will affect our son." Kushina clasped her fingers together. "Naruto." Kyuubi snorted, "It's been boring here save for his occasional prank anyway. As long as it's not life-threatening, who cares?" "We care." The fox laughed at that, but frowned when he saw the Yondaime and his wife disappear from the sewer. It seemed the seal had stabilized again. He wondered what had happened to them just now, though he didn't truly care. He just didn't want the couple to be able to annoy him all the time. Hiragi left the warehouse in a daze, terrified of what he'd almost done. He at first thought he could be careless even if he was killed when he examined the seal, but the chakra access Naruto emitted almost made him insane with the killing intent. Kyuubi's chakra was malicious. It didn't matter how hardened you were as a shinobi, it would make you quiver in fear. It was just so intense and full of hatred, it terrorized your senses until you wanted nothing but for it to stop. It was a mistake. A mistake. He puked the contents of his stomach and then toddled like a newborn calf. He leaned against a tree, his eyes glazed as his whole body trembled. A squad of Anbu landed in front of him, ordering him to come with them without resistance and so on. The same standard procedure in every village. Too bad for them, he had no intentions of going with them, knowing he would be interrogated. He had made a mistake that left his mind in shambles, and the only salvation was what any seal master would do. Well, it had to do with the offspring of the genius bastard he'd been jealous of for so long, at least he was certain his life's work wouldn't be lost in vain. Back in the warehouse, Naruto woke up with a yawn and looked around to find the nice Aji-chan was nowhere to be seen. He was about ready to cry at being left alone once again, but his teary eyes caught sight of an expensive-looking scroll right beside him. His eyes widened when he saw the note attached to it. "Naruto-kun, I have to leave for an important mission and will likely never come back. As promised, here is a scroll to teach you everything I know about Fuinjutsu. Use this scroll to follow in your father's footsteps and become a great seal master. I am sorry I left without telling you. Goodbye." Naruto smiled. Hiragi Jiichin didn't break his promise. He rubbed the inner side of his left thigh and applied the necessary amount of pressure. It was a failsafe he had never bothered to remove, a sheet of poison his superior had planted in his leg for suicide. As pain racked his body, Hiragiyama smiled at the Anbu who gasped at his pained expression. "Namikaze, you better thank me for what I have given to your son. I may have tampered with the seal with my half-assed skill, but what I gave him. See you again in the next life, genius." Chapter 2. Second Legacy. Second Legacy. Prisoner of hatred. Humans are fickle being, they could hate as strong as they love greedier than demon and seek pleasure from slaughtering for power. Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. Naruto ran back to his home with the scroll Hiragi Jiichin gave him safely tucked in his backpack. He was grinning from ear to ear at the prospect of learning cool Fuinjutsu and becoming a seal master like the Yondaime and Hiragi Jiichin. He frowned at the sight of an Anbu squad stationed in front of his home and stopped before jogging to them. "Hello, good evening, what you doing here?" The Anbu with a bird-looking mask crossed his arms. "Where were you, Naruto-kun?" Tori asked worriedly. They had gotten the corpse of the man suspected for kidnapping Naruto, but further investigation indicated the man was alone. They had combed through the entire village before being ordered to wait for the child in front of his home, while another squad was assigned to continue their search. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Shouldn't you know where I am? Like all the time. He pointed out, innocently unaware he had scored a jab on the Anbu squad, losing him again. Naruto-kun, Tori warned, flushing under his mask, we're going to see Hokage-sama. And then after a beat he added, and you're grounded. 3 days of no pranking and no ramen. Naruto flinched at that. Sorry, Tori, I'll just put my backpack in my room first, okay? The bear mask Anbu stretched his hand out to Naruto, and the boy quietly gave the backpack to him. Kuma sighed as he jumped to Naruto's balcony and put the backpack there. No one would steal it anyway. Naruto opened his mouth to protest leaving his backpack there, but Tori hoisted him up onto his shoulder like a sack of potatoes before he could. You're in trouble, Naruto-kun, Tori stated in a stern tone as they took their first leap to the Hokage Tower. Tori, Naruto whined. Tori was the only Anbu of the squad who talked to him. It was not like the rest of the squad was not allowed to speak, but Tori was the spokesman of the squad. But throughout his childhood Naruto could discern from their body language what they wanted to convey. If they crossed their arms with a lifted chin or tapped their limbs, that meant he was in trouble and was going to get grounded. If their shoulders shook slightly, that meant he had done something that amused them. No buts. Naruto had read the rest of the note Hiragi left, including the part that asked him to keep the scroll a secret. Hiragi meant for the scroll to be for Naruto alone, not Konoha. If they knew about the scroll it would be taken away from him, and while the child was warned of that prospect, he was torn between telling Hokage Jaichin and lying to him. The Hokage had always been kind to him and had even assigned an Anbu squad to protect him. Naruto owed the Sandaime a lot, and the least he could do was be honest with him. But Sandaime Jaichin never told him anything about his parents, and whenever Naruto asked, he swiftly dodged the question. The only thing Naruto knew was that they had passed away as heroes, but how they were heroes was never explained. He also never told him why he was shunned by everyone either. I fell asleep in the forest. Technically it was true. He had been sleeping, but it was in a sake warehouse on the outskirts of Konoha. The weather was nice and when I woke up was it late, he mumbled. Since Sandaime didn't trust him with a number of things, Naruto thought it was only fair he kept some secrets, too. The Sandaime, of course, was well aware that Naruto was lying, but what good would it do to force the truth out of Naruto? The child had a stubborn streak a mile wide that he'd inherited from his parents. I see you may go. That night changed everything. On the way back home, he was once again carried by Tori. Naruto's eyes were glazed as a number of scenes played out in his mind. The main character is just like you, sensei. Naruto, it's a beautiful name. Realize what's the most important thing to your brother. I hope our sons will be good friends. Neither shinobi nor Jinchuriki. Naruto. Tori called out. He chuckled when he saw the boy was sleeping on his back. Fell asleep I see. Kuma snorted. He ran us dry today. Deep within Naruto, Kyuubi scrunched his nose. It seemed what the Yondaime and his wife feared had come true. The memories and chakra had leaked into Naruto's system. Never mind Kyuubi's problem though. The Biju was well aware there were small amounts of his chakra leaking into Naruto to build the boy's resistance to it. Kyuubi had been pretty much resigned about it since the moment he was sealed into Naruto. Clink clank clink. He'd had 2 women as his Jinchuriki, so a brat couldn't be any worse of an option in his book. He had contemplated driving Naruto insane, but his pride wouldn't allow him to sink to the same level as Shukaku. Seriously, that Tanuki brought a bad name to Biju, always throwing his name around in his drunken stupors. Had he no shame or pride to keep the honorable name their father bestowed upon them? Clink clank clink. Speaking of pride, he wondered how his fellow Biju were faring with their Jinchuriki. When Kushina was still alive he had heard about Matatabi and Jayuki. It seemed Jayuki had been a good friend with his Jinchuriki or something like that. The second strongest Biju had submitted himself to a life of servitude for shinobi. Clink clank clink. Shut up. Kyuubi roared to no one in particular. Kushina. Stop playing with your chain or I will. He paused, contemplating what he could do to threaten his ex-jailer, someone who was an avatar that existed by chakra and the memory of her son. Nothing came up. Wait a minute, the avatar should be back to a dormant state by now, so where was the rattling sound coming from? On second thought, he couldn't care less. He just wanted it to stop. The next morning, I can't sleep, it's so noisy. What a dream full of a rattling chain, Naruto mumbled, blissfully unaware that his tenant wholeheartedly agreed with him. I didn't even check on the scroll Hiragi Jaichin left me. He blinked at the thought and went to his window. He opened it and shouted to a tree on the left. Tori, can you tell Hokage Jaichin I won't go to the academy today? Tori almost fell comically from his tree. Then again, it was just a daily portion of bruised pride when regarding Uzumaki Naruto. The boy could easily spot them and identify them by name. Naruto couldn't see them, but he could sense them. Sometimes he wondered if Naruto was a sensor type, but according to the Hokage, it was in the Uzumaki blood to have a sharp intuition. The Anbu sighed. Naruto-kun. He was about to chide the blonde boy, but stopped when he saw the tired look on Naruto's face. What's wrong? Didn't get enough sleep. I can't sleep, he answered. Nightmare. Naruto shook his head. It was a noisy dream. The sound of a rattling chain echoing in a sewer. I will send a message to Hokage-sama, Tori said. Go back to sleep, Naruto-kun. My head is throbbing, Tori. The Anbu frowned. We'll go see a doctor then. Naruto was too tired to protest that he disliked hospitals. Sanada Anzu was the only medic Sandaime trusted to handle Naruto with care. She had been, after all, a dear friend of Kushina's. She had black hair that held a green sheen to it and steel-colored eyes. Anzu was dressed in the standard outfit for female medics of Konoha. She was one of the few medic nin lucky enough to be taught by Tsunade of the Sannin. She was not an apprentice of Tsunade, but back in the Third Shinobi War, she had been part of a medic class Tsunade had taught. In spite of her vast array of knowledge, she was nowhere near Tsunade's level, but she was good enough to be head doctor of the hospital. Unfortunately, her health was not the best and she would retire within the next 2 years. She had been reckless when she was younger and had been poisoned by a Sunanin on one of her missions. While immediate death was avoided by neutralizing the poison, Anzu had discovered not all of the poison from back then had been removed from her system. Now it was gnawing on her liver and heart and, within the next 2 years, would reach her nervous system and paralyze her. Anzu doubted Tsunade-sama herself could heal her, but she was content with continuing to serve Konoha. Her only worries were about Kushina's son. The boy was a frequent patient, though thankfully not because of the hate of the villagers. If she retired, would a replacement treat the boy like she did? The boy rarely got sick, but when he did it was just a mild flu or fever. He also received minor injuries from his prank escapades. Anzu recalled Kushina was the same way back then. At first, after she'd found out about Kushina's status, she was confused about why Kushina needed medical treatment from time to time. Apparently, her tenant wouldn't heal minor injuries because it was beneath it to give so many favors. She recalled Kushina didn't have the best relationship with her tenant and she had to wonder if it would treat Naruto the same way too. So, Naruto-kun had trouble sleeping. Anzu eyed her patient keenly, then briefly glanced at the bird mask Anbu. The boy looked like he was sleeping soundly, but it was obvious he was troubled. All this time I thought he was the type who could sleep through an ox stampede. His mother could when she was off duty. Tori nodded. He said, it was a noisy dream. The sound of a rattling chain echoing in a sewer, he quoted. Anzu raised an eyebrow. Chain. That oddly reminded her of Kushina. I don't want to give him sleep medicine. She had learned from Kushina it wasn't effective anyway. I guess we can only observe him and make sure he is fine. There's nothing we can do for now. Anzu had no idea how correct she was. Naruto awoke to the sound of feral screaming and wet feet. He wondered how he got there as the last thing he remembered was napping on Tori's back on the way to the hospital. Since when did the hospital look like a sewer? It wasn't hygienic, right? He thought out loud, almost falling down when the feral voice screamed louder, thundering throughout the sewer. If you know it's unhygienic, don't turn your mind into a sewer, brat. My mind? He echoed as he ran to the source of the voice. Who's there? It didn't take long for him to find a giant cage and a pair of red eyes glowing in the deep darkness within. Kyuubi moved closer to the bars with bared fangs. I see that my jailer has decided to grace me with his presence. He would have tried to intimidate the boy with his claws, but decided against it because distressing the brat risked the seal reacting in the undesirable way it did last night. Jailer? Naruto repeated. Who? Me? Yes, you. The Kyuubi growled, and after a beat added under his breath, to my everlasting shame. He was pretty grumpy because of the noise from before and because of the fact it sounded eerily like Kushina's chain. Naruto looked at the giant shadow with red eyes with childish curiosity. You're big. Very observant, he said sardonically. Naruto beamed at that. Thanks. Rubbing the back of his head with that sheepish smile, eerily reminded the Kyuubi of Kushina's habit when she was embarrassed. You're not even old enough to recognize sarcasm. Kyuubi rolled his eyes. I bet you don't even know what sarcasm is. Oh. Can you teach me then? Naruto asked innocently. The giant shadow with red eyes was nice. For someone like Naruto who had been ignored by a majority of Konoha's population, having someone talk civilly to him was enough to consider said person as a potential friend. The Anbu were nice, but they only interacted with him if it was necessary. What sarcasm? Is it something good? Kyuubi sighed. This was why he preferred his Jinchuriki to be at least capable of comprehending he was a dangerous being. What a child, whatever, go away brat. I need my beauty sleep. Oh, you're a girl. I thought your voice was a bit low like man. Sorry. He chirped. Kyuubi's left eye twitched angrily. I am no woman, brat. Now go away and never come back. A spell of silence hung in the air until it was broken by a choked sob. Hick. If anything, his eye twitching didn't subside even as the brat in front of him burst into waterworks. Why are you crying, brat? Naruto hiccuped. You told me to go away hick hick. Just like the parents of the children he tried to play with. You don't want me here hick hick. You want to get away from me he sobbed. Kyuubi sighed. I wish I could. He had zero intentions of consoling the brat. Who cared if he cried? It was something new at least. Mito and Kushina never let themselves show any weakness in front of him. Then again, the brat was an innocent child. Unfortunately, he had nursed his hatred for too many years to care for the brat's woes. He was as unwilling as Naruto was with this arrangement of jailer and prisoner. In fact, more so considering he had dealt with confinement for many more years. Speaking of the brat, why had he become so quiet now? You can't. Why? Naruto had stopped crying and was looking at the Biju with wide curious eyes. There was something in those eyes, and Kyuubi's mind went into autopilot like all living creatures did when faced with puppy dog eyes. The eyes demanded to be given into too. I was sealed in you, so like it or not I am going to be here for your whole life. Mentally, Kyuubi hit himself for giving in. Naruto stammered in disbelief. Will be he took a deep breath, with me forever. To my everlasting shame, Kyuubi admitted with a growl. I am inside your mindscape, so yeah you live, I live unless you screw up. The last part was muttered under his breath. Naruto's big blue eyes widened as he took in what Kyuubi said. He didn't understand why Kyuubi was stuck with him, but what he did understand was that someone would always be with him. He would never be alone again. So what he should do now was get the big shadow to like him. Anu saw. Will you be my friend? He asked with the most pleading voice he could muster. Kyuubi's eyes widened in disbelief. The brat asked what friend had he been dropped on his head or something. Do you know who I am? He asked back. No. Naruto chirped. What in Rakudu Sennin's name was the brat thinking? Wanting to be his friend was crazy enough, but asking someone he didn't even know to be his friend was even more bizarre. Then again, Kyuubi's previous Jinchuriki never suffered isolation like Naruto did because their status was a well-kept secret from civilians and lower-ranked ninjas. While Kushina had suffered a bit because of racism in the beginning, it hadn't lasted long because she'd begun dating Namikaze Minato, and people had forgotten her foreign status in the midst of war. In Naruto's case however, he didn't even have a clue about why he was hated and ignored to the point of being desperate for attention. The gears in his mind started working. The prospect of having a too naive Jinchuriki affected their survival rate negatively. The previous night's incident was a testament to how dangerously naive Naruto was because of his longing. Brat, do you know what happened on October 10th 6 years ago? For survival's sake, the brat could cry himself hoarse, but he wasn't going to get both of them killed because he craved attention. Naruto tilted his head to the side. The Yondaime Hokage defeated the Kyuubi no Yauko, and Hirokli saved Konoha. Everyone in Konoha knew about it, it was common knowledge. Kyuubi groaned as he moved forward, revealing his body to the child. As expected the child froze. And yet here I am, that was the bullshit your old Hokage fed to you younglings. I am an immortal being. Not even the Yondaime could kill me, the strongest Biju hissed, revealing his sharp teeth. Naruto looked up at the demon, stricken by fear at the sight of the nine-tailed fox. He was gargantuan. The tale about his gigantic body was not an exaggeration. You're the Kyuubi. You're sealed in me. Is that why grown-ups hate me? Though you're not as stupid as I thought. It seemed the brat was not a lost cause. They think you're my reincarnation or something along that line, fools. All of them. They fear a helpless child like you, how foolish. Naruto stared at Kyuubi. Did the fox just give a sound reason about why he was hated? Did he just call the villagers stupid for hating him? For mistaking him as its reincarnation? Logic told him to fear the Kyuubi, but his heart was elated that someone else felt he didn't deserve their hatred. Humans are fickle beings, they can hate as strong as they love, are greedier than a demon, and seek pleasure from slaughtering for power. Is that why you attacked Konoha? Naruto blurted out the first question that came to his mind without even realizing it. Because humans are horrible. He added. Were we punished by Kami-sama? Kyuubi couldn't believe his ears. Why didn't the child break out into a hysterical fit and blame all his misery on him? Why did he ask about the reason he attacked Konoha? Brat, I hate Konoha. A pure and simple reason for attacking the village. Why? Naruto asked again. Why you ask? Kyuubi returned the question with another. I hate Konoha, that's all there is to it. Naruto shook his head fervently. All this time, I never knew why they hated me, and it hurt so bad, he mumbled as tears streamed down his cheeks. I didn't know what I did to deserve it. To them, I am that child or bakemono, they never cared about who I am, and yet they hate me so much. He looked up to his prisoner, azure eyes locked onto Kyuubi's red. When you told me why they hate me, I was so angry, scared, and relieved. The Biju stared at the child with disbelief evident in his feral face. Relieved? Kyuubi repeated incredulously. You're relieved because now you know why they hate you. Naruto nodded. It still hurts, he admitted with a pained grin, but at least I know it's not my fault now, I know I don't deserve that hatred. That's why I want to know why you hate Konoha and humans so much, please tell me. Ayubi couldn't believe he was considering responding. All his life he had been controlled and seen as a lesser being with a base nature of wrath. Uchiha Madara had viewed him as a tool to control with his so-called blessed eyes. Senju Hashirama called him a creature too terrible to be free, and Uzumaki Mito and Kushina bound him to them to keep the world safe from him. He was a mass of chakra and hatred they feared, and yet humans were ignorant of what caused that hatred to grow within him. They feared his hatred, and yet they nursed said hatred by imprisoning and using him. All of them, even the shinobi who claimed to be the strongest among their kind, were guilty of this. And yet, this one child was the only one who had bothered to ask. A child of 6 years old, young even by human standards. Shukaku, Matatabi, Isab, Songoku Kakuo, Seiken, Chamei, Jaiuki, and Kurama one day someday will true power. Ayubi gritted his teeth, recalling the memory about the human who saw them as his children, the only man whose death he had shed tears for. This child bore many similarities to his father, so maybe this child was different than the other worthless humans. Your village has been imprisoning me for years, binding me to their will, he began. The Shaddai Hokage captured and sealed me to keep me at bay, passing me on from generation to generation. Then 6 years ago I was freed from the seal. That's why you attacked Konoha when I was born? Naruto asked, his eyes still wide and glassy with tears. So many people died back then, Ayubi snorted. If I'd had a choice, I would have left and never come back instead of risking my freedom to wreak havoc. The Biju roared angrily, causing Naruto to be blown away into the watery surface. Revenge is one thing, freedom is quite another. But someone controlled me and made me attack your pathetic village. And guess what, I am sealed again within you. So, the attack is not your fault? Naruto asked. Hell no. See where it landed me, Kyuubi asked incredulously. I am no fool. And his eyes narrowed at his Jinchuriki. The boy's shoulders were shaking. Brat, you. Ha 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 ha. What are you laughing at? Kyuubi roared irately. Naruto grinned from ear to ear. No, it's just both of us are stuck to each other unwillingly and neither of us are to blame. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Naruto kept laughing to the point Kyuubi thought his Jinchuriki had gone mad. That only lasted for a short moment before a stream of tears soaked the child's cheek. Brat, are you crying, laughing, or both? They didn't seem like tears of happiness. It's just it never ends, Naruto muttered sadly. I should hate the villagers since they made my life miserable, but since they hate me because of you I should hate you instead. But you're stuck with me because it's someone else's fault, Naruto shook his head. It just goes on, should I hate the Yondaime now for sealing you and me? No. He had to save Konoha, but then should I hate Konoha? And now it's back to square one, his lips quivered. I thought I would be happy to know why I am hated by everyone, because then I could change their minds or even hate them back, but in the end, I can do neither, and it still hurts so much. Kyuubi eyed Naruto skeptically, looking for a sign of dishonesty. He found none. The boy was being honest. Then again, his family was never one to lie either. As much as he hated Mito and Kushina, he respected their sincerity. Other humans could betray and lie as easily as breathing, but not Mito and Kushina, and neither could this child, it seemed. I see, so what would you do, child? And as expected, the boy was unaware Kyuubi called him child instead of brat. I don't know. Kyuubi sighed, it was never this complicated with his previous Jinchuriki. Will you be my friend? The fox stared at Naruto then sighed. I thought I would get used to your antics, but I'm not, Kyuubi admitted. Not even the boy's mother could be so persistent or even think of being his friend. Then again, Kushina was told by Mito that he was a massive chakra full of hatred, while Naruto had no one to teach him that. Why would you want to be a friend of a Biju? One who has terrorized your village and made you a pariah. Naruto grinned his first true smile since he found out about his Jinchuriki status. Tori once said, birds of the same wings gather together. I think you mean birds of a feather flock together, Kyuubi corrected, rolling his eyes. The boy blinked at that. Yeah. And you see, since we're stuck together, I thought. No. Why not? Just because. Naruto harumphed. I guess this is what they call the courting process. He had seen a Jounin attempt to befriend a pretty lady, and after said Jounin failed, another Jounin came and advised his friend to take it easy and slow the courting process. Kyuubi eyed his Jinchuriki skeptically, wondering why he had to deal with this instead of Kushina and Minato. Courting is to get yourself a mate, child. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. Naruto started, coincidentally ignoring Kyuubi's correction. What's your name? He had seen a girl his age using the same introduction to be another girl's friend. They backed away when he tried the same thing though. Kyuubi groaned. You know who I am. Naruto tilted his head to the side in confusion. Is Kyuubi your real name? Kyuubi groaned again. He would disrespect his old man who gave him the name if he dared to say yes to that question. It's what I am. Nine Tails is not my real name. After a beat he added, and I'm not going to tell you either. But if it's what you are, I don't want to call you Kyuubi anymore. Naruto refused with a scowl. That's like the villagers calling me that boy or monster, they don't care who I am. Kyuubi sighed again. This was getting ridiculous. The brat was getting under his skin and he'd only known him for half an hour. It was record time. Fine, I am Kurama, and he shook his head. He was not going to rant about how he was the king of Mount Kurama, his tails, or his beauty like a certain ape brother of his. So your name is Kurama. Naruto beamed, and Kyuubi was startled to see the boy was elated from learning his name. Nina, my name means maelstrom, you know. Kurama snorted. The boy was a keen learner, observing how to make friends. What made the brat think it could work on a Biju? Actually, you're named after another kind of Naruto that was randomly thought of when eating ramen, he muttered under his breath, recalling Kushina and Minato's conversation with the toad hermit. Did you say something? Naruto tilted his head to side, ears perked up at Kyuubi. No. Oh, okay, so what's your name mean? Naruto urged on, grinning from ear to ear. Kurama growled. Enough is enough. Don't keep pestering me. You should be honored I even bothered to tell you my name. I am not going to be your friend and that's it. Naruto looked like he was about to protest but held his tongue. He shook his head. I'm sorry for being annoying, Kurama, I'm just so used to acting that way so people will pay attention to me. The fox flinched involuntarily. That was a sore spot. But I'm not giving up about being your friend because then we can both stop hurting from this hatred. I guess I'll go now, but I will come back again, Kurama. He grinned. See you later, the Jinchuriki said as he turned around and started to walk away. Oi, Naruto. You can try. Kyuubi considered that as a challenge and wanted to see if the brat would rise to the occasion in spite of all the odds. Naruto spun around, staring at the Biju in shock. That was not a yes to be his friend, but it definitely wasn't outright rejection. That meant one day, Kurama would accept him as a friend. That was more of a chance than any of the villagers had given him, and here the Biju they feared so much had given him a shred of hope. Thank you, Kurama, Naruto muttered in gratitude. And after a beat he added, by the way do you know how I get out? Kurama's left eye twitched violently. This isn't going to be the last time I deal with your idiocy, is it? Damn Minato and Kushina. Why did he have to deal with this? Oi, Naruto. For our survival's sake, stop trusting so easily. Unexpectedly, the boy nodded, his expression looking resigned as he accepted the truth reluctantly. Also, keep this encounter a secret. As kind as your Hokage appears, he has to put his pathetic village above everything else, including you. Naruto nodded again. I won't blame him for that either. He snorted at that. Whatever, but bear in mind that your life is not your own, and maybe one day you can prove yourself to be the one we have been waiting for so long. Kuro, what do you? And everything went white. Naruto woke up and found the Sandaime hovering above him with a worried expression. Hokage Jaichen. Sandaime smiled at the child, caressing his yellow locks. How are you feeling, Naruto? The child stiffened for a moment, then his lips curved into a smile. I am fine, Jiji. He grinned from ear to ear. As good as new after some good sleep. The Hokage instantly knew Naruto was hiding something, but he didn't know what, and it wasn't wise to pressure the child. It must be depression because the villagers treated him badly again. I'm glad to hear that it's almost dinner time, and Sanada-sensei assured me you deserve a good meal instead of hospital food. Sanada knew how much her late friend and her son loved ramen. Ichiraku ramen. Naruto cheered. At night, another secret was made. In the back of his mind, Naruto wondered if the secrets would keep piling up or if he'd ever tell anything to Sandaime again. But if the Hokage and the whole village could keep secrets from him, why not the other way around? He should at least have that much. Third legacy. Origin of legacy. Uchiha is always the source of trouble, and you're one trouble magnet, Naruto, to my eternal shame. It's like you and Uchiha are a match made in heaven, Kurama. Kyuubi no Kitsune. Fuinjutsu was an obscure shinobi art most shinobi did not study extensively due to the research needed to master it. It was also notorious as being one of the most dangerous branches of the shinobi arts to learn. You would think an art that didn't involve physical training, but a brush, ink and paper was not dangerous. However, it was proved throughout the years as the most accident-prone art. Those who died learning Fuinjutsu didn't die in the battlefield, but in their own workshop. Even a small glob of ink in the wrong place could trigger a dangerous outcome. It's understandable why the Uzumaki clan was one of the few clans specialized in it. They had both the brain and vitality to survive and master the art. The art was said to have an endless amount possibilities, which was not a stretch of the imagination, considering they could contain the most powerful creatures that ever graced Mother Earth. However, unlike the three main shinobi arts, ninjutsu, jinjutsu, and taijutsu, fuinjutsu was not an art you could master by forming hand seals and training your ass off. If you survived learning the art by copying what's been done before, you were nothing more than a copier and never a master. Seals were like a machine in the form of ink, thus to create a seal, practitioners had to understand each part and the correlation between them. Mathematics, chakra theory, and calligraphy were the three basic skills one should achieve first, before even thinking about picking up a brush and making their first stroke. You have to master calligraphy not with flourish but with precision, not with a graceful stroke, but a swift one. If a practitioner was a frontline seal master, one stroke could decide life and death. Chakra was the energy that powered every seal, thus every shinobi who learned Fuinjutsu had to understand the nature of the energy. How it would move, mold, change and so on when flowing through a seal, and how chakra with a certain nature could have different results when channeled, like explode. Mathematics was an abstract study of topics encompassing quantity, structure, space, and change. This subject was essential to the array of each component of the seal down to its very location. One had to practice step by step to reach a logical conclusion. Mathematical structures were used as models of seal mechanisms. The seal master should use mathematical reasoning to provide insight or predictions about the nature of the seal they were working on. Naruto wandered to the academy library, marveling at how it became such a magical place the moment he thirsted for knowledge. He picked a few books of his desired subjects and a few extras and began to read it one by one. The book was meant for children, which was obvious by how thin it was and how it only just covered basic material, but it still had a lot of information to memorize. Naruto had no delusions he could jam everything in his brain, so he resorted to taking notes to learn it thoroughly later because he knew he was unwelcomed by the librarian. At this blatant display of hatred, Naruto wondered when the Chunin librarian was going to snap and throw him out of the library. Not anytime soon, hopefully, because he had no legitimate excuse to do so. So Naruto ignored the stare of the fuming librarian, determined to take notes from at least 2 books of each subject. He stopped taking notes once he reached his target goal for the day and began to read the extra book about ninja rank. As he skimmed through the Genin section and reached the Chunin section, Naruto couldn't help but frown. There were 2 ways to be promoted to Chunin. The exam and in-field promotion. Both routes required a Chunin to have at least a meager skill in leadership and tactics. He rolled his eyes to the fuming Chunin and then back to the book. How could that guy be promoted when he wasn't even being discreet with his glare? Then again, it was none of his business, Naruto thought as he stood up gathering the books to put them back onto shelves neatly. In the corner of his eyes he saw the Chunin stand up, looking torn between scolding and ignoring him. No doubt the Chunin thought he was trying to pull a prank or was going to damage the academy's precious books. Naruto swiftly left the library with a stack of notes in his backpack, allowing the Chunin to check the library thoroughly for any signs of a prank. Which, of course, was just a figment of his imagination and paranoia. Idiots, Naruto thought. If Chunin were supposed to be as good as the guidebook said, they shouldn't worry about a 6-year-old pulling a prank right under their noses. For 2 months, Chunin's in charge of the academy library were terrorized not by his pranks, but by his mere presence in their humble abode, Naruto narrated sarcastically in his mind as he began his routine of visiting the library after his class finished. 2 months ago he didn't even understand what sarcasm was, but that was nothing a dictionary couldn't fix. He had asked Tori to help him buy one because he needed it to understand some big words in the Fuinjutsu manuals. He would have bought it himself if he didn't have to deal with the barely suppressed hostility of the shopkeepers, but had a bad history with bookshops after one of their staff insulted him and he pranked them as revenge. He had visited Kurama quite often, but not intentionally at first. It just so happened when he slept, he found himself in the same sewer with Ibiju. He had tried anything he could think of to get in contact with Kurama on his own will, much to Kurama's ire, but his attempts had been in vain. It took 1 month for Naruto to discover how to connect with Ibiju through meditation, and it had been difficult. It got easier to do with time, and now he could even stay conscious when speaking to Kurama directly from his mind, although Kurama ignored him most of the time he did. Naruto guessed that was because Kurama was someone who preferred to speak face to face. Kurama was still not the most sociable Biju, though Naruto was glad the fox could tolerate his presence at least. While he was not hospitable, Kurama was not against engaging in conversation with Naruto, and that was more than what a majority of people in Konoha had deigned to do. Much to Naruto's delight, Kurama was a fountain of knowledge, and he dared to say the Biju was even more knowledgeable than the Sandaime. Kurama was an ancient creature after all, born from the hands of Rakuto Sennin himself. The Biju had also told him about the Uzumaki clan, and Naruto was very happy to know that his clan specialized in Fuinjutsu. He was sad Yuzu was no more, though. When Naruto asked how Kurama knew about the Uzumaki clan, Kurama had snorted and said, the sage of Sixth Path's wife was in Uzumaki. Originally, the Uzumaki clan descended from the Onyaji line, and they became the first practitioners of Fuinjutsu after the shinobi era began. This was why Uzumaki was said to be a distant relative of the Senju clan and the Uchihas, though it wasn't acknowledged by the Sharingan wielders for some unknown reason. With all the knowledge Kurama possessed, Naruto had to wonder why his predecessors avoided talking with the Biju casually. They don't know what they missed out on. Naruto said cheerfully when Kurama told him none of his predecessors had ever bothered to listen to him, much less his story. Naruto was very happy when Kurama didn't refuse to tell the story about the Sage of Six Paths, indulging the Jinchuriki's thirst for knowledge. Then again, after years of confinement with two Jinchuriki who tuned him out, Kurama could appreciate a good listener in Naruto. He was also a much better teacher in history to Naruto than the Chunin in the academy. Kurama would have raised an eyebrow if he had one. My conversation with them was never civil. In fact, he could count how many times he talked with Mito and Kushina on one paw. They never wanted to speak to him, and all he had said to them were taunts in his rage. I hated them and they kept me at bay, the feeling was mutual. Naruto's eyes softened at that. I guess that means I'm special then. He grinned from ear to ear. Kurama rolled his eyes. Yes, you're the dumbest, too. Naruto guessed that was Kurama's trademark of mixed compliments and sarcasm. Now, Kurama, we're trying to fix that, okay? I suppose, Kurama grunted. Now, where was I last night? You met Kinkaku and they challenged you. Naruto informed the Biju. Kurama grunted again, ah yes, those two annoying worms. From his short time knowing the fox, Kurama breathed out sarcasm as naturally as Naruto walked on his 2 feet. Unlike what Naruto read about Kyuubi in Konoha's history book and other sources, Kyuubi was not a mindless evil entity bent on destroying the world. But he was definitely not a personification of goodness. Kurama was an intelligent Biju and had a scathing, sadistic personality. However, he also had a sense of fairness and sarcastic honor. The scathing and sadistic part was a bit unnerving, especially when Kurama explained what he would like to do to Madara and the Shaddai for dragging him to their family feud. Thankfully, Kurama had spared him from the too gory details. However, it seemed Kurama hated Madara at least 3 times more than he did the Shaddai, and considering what history said about the man, Naruto had to admit that hatred was well placed. Imagine how Kurama had felt when he took a nap in his favorite dwelling, only to wake up to Madara insulting and disrespecting him. The man had ranted about how Kurama's fate was as a slave for Madara's blessed eyes, and then had dragged him into a fight with the Shaddai Hokage to settle a family feud. In which said feud landed Kurama in his current position. It was the reason Kurama told Naruto to be cautious of the Uchiha, while silently lamenting about how far the fruit fell from the tree. How the stupid son of his old man procreated a clan of stuck-up jerks Kurama didn't know. As far as Kurama was concerned, the descendants of the old man's stupid son were all a source of trouble. Naruto had also asked if Kurama knew about his parents, but the fox swiftly answered that he wouldn't tell Naruto anything he didn't know. Kurama explained that it wasn't that he couldn't, but that he shouldn't. In his opinion, people around Naruto would tell him when the time was right. It was neither Kurama's right nor duty to tell Naruto, especially since he didn't know why information about his parentage was kept secret. Kurama, however, implied it was a political reason, and as a Biju he wouldn't get involved in it. Naruto never pried about it after that. And then I spat them out, I regret not chewing them, the Biju lamented, feeling a bit ill as he recalled the brothers had eaten his gut to survive. Naruto nodded sagely. Tori always tells me to chew my food before I swallow. Naruto, they didn't give me indigestion, Kurama grumbled, and Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. Fine. They did, but that's not why I regret not chewing them. Next time I'll just have to make sure my food is dead before I swallow it. I'm sure you will, Naruto said patronizingly. Naruto started skipping his taijutsu lessons, not because he wanted to, but because he was forced to. Like any other subject at the academy, the instructor always attempted to sabotage him, but in taijutsu it was not as subtle. They taught him the wrong way to stretch, even though his older classmates did it a different way. When he questioned them about it, they always said it was the correct way for a child his age. What a load of bullshit, he thought. Sparring was the worst because they always pitted him against the strongest students, and then his older classmates were given the impression that it was okay to beat him up in a spar. They were bullies, and a spar was a legitimate excuse to beat him up. His grades, though, became better because he started paying attention and taking notes. He was no genius in class, but he wasn't the dead last either. They could sabotage his learning all they wanted to now because he didn't buy their teaching anymore. Which was why they had started to sabotage his taijutsu training 3 times harder. He was, at first, clueless about the scheming behind his back, but ever since he found out about his Jinchuriki status, he did not wish to indulge them as a punching bag. Let them call him a coward or lazy to their heart's content, he could now use his time for more productive purposes. Kurama had no intentions of pampering his Jinchuriki by training him, not that the Biju could anyway considering the difference in their natures, but much to Naruto's delight, Kurama still remembered what they taught in academy to Kushina. Apparently, the Biju had an almost photographic memory. Since Kurama was Kurama, all he said was, back then, they trained kids to increase their stamina and develop flexibility before teaching any taijutsu kata. That's it, go figure out the rest yourself. That was all Naruto needed to know, because he then went to the library and took notes about increasing stamina and flexibility. He wished he could have brought the book home, but the librarian was already so high-strung by his mere presence in library, and Naruto had no intentions of testing what the Chunin would do if he dared to approach the counter to check it out. Tori was exasperated by his decision to keep skipping to jutsu classes, but nothing he said could convince Naruto. The Anbu squad had witnessed what was happening, and they had to agree that class was too counterproductive to endure for attendance's sake. Naruto asked them to keep it a secret from Sandaime, with the excuse of not wanting to trouble the Hokage because he looked so busy lately. They couldn't refute that since Sandaime was in a lot of political pressure lately. If Naruto could be so considerate for their Hokage, who were they to not do the same? Unfortunately, shinobi couldn't teach academy students without legal permission, but they could always give Naruto pointers and prevent him from accidentally injuring himself. Naruto was thankful for that, especially since Kurama had made it clear he didn't want to heal sprains caused by a mistake in stretching. Naruto hoped this would be the end of his problem in the academy. 1 week later, and so, that concludes the battle between the Shodai Hokage and Uchiha Madara that created the vast crater that is now known as the Valley of the End. Naruto was reciting what Kurama had said about the petty family feud he'd been dragged into, omitting some gory parts and the insults. Naruto looked up from his essay and was greeted by the dumbstruck face of his teacher and the rest of the class. The Chunin was so pale it looked like he was going to faint. Naruto groaned inwardly. It seemed he had just flunked history class. Why did he always feel like he was walking on a tightrope in school? The Chunin was probably thinking Naruto could never write a detailed essay like that because he hadn't lived through it. He had been so careful trying to write the essay with information that could be taken from the available history books, though he had borrowed Kurama's narrative style since the fox was such a good storyteller. And again, the thought of Kyuubi writing an essay about Shodai and Madara was absurd. Why the Chunin could ever believe that for a moment was beyond him. Kurama was right, there were too many idiots in this village. Sooner or later he would have to fake his mark in every subject, what was the point of going to school at this rate? Naruto walked out of the school with a heavy heart and went to the forest near the Uchiha compound. His mood brightened at the sight of a gigantic oak tree, his favorite place. Kurama had told him in a disgusted tone that the tree was a historical living monument grown by the Shodai as a sign of friendship for the Uchiha clan. If one looked closely at the peak of its trunk, a faint carving of the Uchiha and Senju crest could be seen. He liked to sleep on its thick branch, under its lush leaves. The atmosphere was soothing, and it always calmed his mind. It was his favorite pastime to relax and reread his notes there. Naruto climbed the tree swiftly, using chakra so his limbs would stick to the surface. Naruto was still trying to improve his tree walking, but slow progress was better than nothing. He heaved a sigh as he pushed himself up to his favorite branch. School sucks, he grumbled under his breath as he pulled his notes from his backpack. He leaned against the trunk using his backpack as a replacement pillow. Jinchuriki opened his Fuinjutsu notebook, which was the thickest one he had compiled. He had found some samples of standard seals and was in the process of breaking it down into specific components so he could study its mechanics. It was easy to take a sample of the tags from a shop when the owner was serving another customer, and since it was drawn with normal ink and not chakra ink, it wouldn't explode. Naruto was pondering over the sample flash tag when a voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Good afternoon. He flailed his arms out, almost losing his balance, and accidentally knocked his backpack over. He quickly grabbed it, but the contents poured over the newcomer that greeted him. Naruto watched in abject horror as his history essay homework fell right above the newcomer's head. While it was just a pile of papers, the height the pile was dropped at was enough to do damage to someone's skull. The newcomer caught the book in midair calmly and without even looking, and Naruto breathed out a sigh of relief. He then gasped when he saw it was raining papers. He had accidentally knocked over the stack of notes he put beside him. Naruto would have come down in a heartbeat to retrieve his notes, but when the stranger bent over to pick up the papers, he revealed the Uchiha symbol on his back, causing him to freeze up. An Uchiha. Soon after he found out about Kyuubi, Naruto had started to pick up things he hadn't noticed before. The village, or at least the shinobi population and a minority of the civilians, ostracized the Uchiha clan. It was not the outright staring or shunning they did to him, but he could tell they eyed the Uchiha clan cautiously. It was as though they thought the clan would kill them in their sleep, and it was easy to guess why. After all, it was a well-known fact Biju could only be controlled by an Uchiha, a Mokuton user, or a Jinchuriki. Which also explained why the clan avoided him like plague. In fact, he rarely saw an Uchiha walk on the same street as him. And yet this Uchiha had approached and talked to him. Was this guy crazy? No good, he chanted in his mind as he sweated profusely. Why had he asked Tori and his team to leave him alone for a while? He had even promised them he wouldn't get into trouble. Then again, he had thought no one would find him here, yet this guy had walked right up to him. It took all his willpower to not just bolt and get the hell away. Naruto had nothing against the Uchiha clan personally, but Kurama's rant about how they were the harbingers of doom who wasted his old man's good gene was not helping. Kurama was also very certain that not being alert around the Dojutsu-bearing clan would kill him in the end. It was enough to put Naruto on edge whenever he spotted an Uchiha nearby. Naruto was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't notice the Uchiha was reading his history essay. The Jinchuriki blinked when he heard the sound of papers ruffling and saw that Uchiha was reading his homework. He pointed at the dark-haired Uchiha. Oi. Don't read someone else's stuff without permission. The Uchiha looked up from his reading to eye Naruto curiously. Naruto stared right back at the Uchiha. He was older than Naruto, but still a young Uchiha with onyx eyes, black hair with bangs that framed his face, and a low-tied ponytail. There was also a distinct line under each of his eyes that made him look slightly older than his age. My apologies, the Uchiha said. I'm interested in history, especially about our village, and your essay is a very interesting read. Naruto raised an eyebrow and after a beat the Uchiha added, it's enlightening. Naruto stared at the Uchiha in disbelief and mentally asked his tenant, Kurama, is this guy for real? What should I do? You're asking me, how should I know? My routine when I see an Uchiha is maim, kill, or eat, Kurama griped. Naruto sighed. Advice for a human, please. Kurama groaned. How could you run into an Uchiha here anyway? Naruto rolled his eyes inwardly. This forest is near their compound, although it's in another area opposite of this place. True, but still how likely is it that an Uchiha stumbles upon you in such a big forest? Kurama wondered with a sigh. Uchiha are always the source of trouble, and you're one trouble magnet, Naruto. To my eternal shame it's like you and the Uchihas are a match made in heaven. Is this really the time to be sarcastic? Kurama Naruto asked internally, gritting his teeth. Naruto smiled sheepishly at the Uchiha. Excuse me, but could you give me my essay and notes back? The Uchiha nodded curtly and Naruto almost sighed in relief but held his breath when the Uchiha started walking up the tree. What? Wait. He had thought the older boy was going to just leave his stuff on the ground and go away, not come closer. The Uchiha ignored his plea and jumped onto the branch Naruto occupied. He crouched down and then put the essay and notes in front of Naruto in a neat stack. Here. Naruto rubbed his throbbing cranium and then looked around the surrounding area, sniffing the air. The Uchiha's lips curved up at him. There's no one around for at least a 3-mile radius, Uzumaki Naruto-kun. Naruto took his notes and essay back hesitantly, eyes never leaving the Uchiha as he put his stuff back into his backpack. Do I know you? He asked. My apologies. Again with the apologies, what a weird Uchiha, Naruto thought. My name is Uchiha Itachi. Great. The prodigy of the Uchiha clan himself and no one in a 3-mile radius. Wonderful. He ignored Kurama's praise about Naruto becoming a master in the art of sarcasm. Naruto was too busy wondering if the Uchiha was planning to kill him. You know who I am, right? I believe I just called you by your full name, Naruto-kun, Itachi informed the Jinchuriki. Naruto's left eye twitched and he wondered if Itachi was being sarcastic or just pointing out facts. Right, he drawled and then decided to bite the bullet. Were you talking to me, Uchiha-san? Itachi eyed Naruto keenly and Naruto averted his eyes. Do I need a reason? He asked back. Uchiha-san, Naruto called. I am Uzumaki Naruto and I have seen members of your clan turn on their heels whenever I was in their vicinity. He might as well tell the prodigy he was well aware of the Uchiha clan's behavior around him. I thought you were going to do the same. The heir of the Uchiha clan smiled at that. You're more perceptive than the rumors state, Itachi said after a beat, or my clan is not as subtle as I thought. A mix of both actually. Why he indulged the Uchiha by continuing on with the conversation was beyond him, but it was unlikely he would get away anytime soon. Sometimes, even ninja won't be subtle when they don't know they're being watched. HN, I still remember you haven't answered my question about why you didn't avoid me like the rest of your clan, Naruto informed Itachi in an annoyed tone, and I would like an answer soon. Itachi looked amused by Naruto's words. Exception proves the rule. Naruto groaned. Okay, seriously, what do you want, Uchiha-san? Kurama was getting restless in his cage, screaming at his Jinchuriki to get the hell away from the bastard Uchiha. Can I leave now? Why would you want to leave? Itachi questioned back. This was getting nowhere, the prodigy was leading him on. Your lack of answer makes me nervous. Screw subtlety, mind games weren't his forte. Itachi's lips curved up into a small smile, which caught Naruto off guard. Would you believe me if I said I'm interested in your essay? He asked genially, much to Naruto's shock. Naruto blinked owlishly. My essay? What's so interesting about it? He asked warily. You're an active ninja, and that essay is written by an academy student. Itachi sniffed. It's still better than what I read in standard history books. It's very detailed too. Naruto was torn between feeling flattered someone thought his writing was good and horrified Itachi might think he was the Kyuubi. Thank you," so he trailed off as he fished his essay from his backpack. "You want it?" he offered as he handed the essay over. In the back of his mind Kurama was rolling in his cage, laughing that Naruto thought Itachi would leave him alone if he gave the older boy his essay. Itachi blinked owlishly at the offer. "Can I?" Naruto nodded, "It's already graded and I have another copy at home," he replied sincerely as Itachi accepted the neatly folded paper. Itachi gave him a curt nod, his eyes scanning the paper curiously. "Thank you," he said as he looked up only to find Naruto had disappeared. All that was left was paper floating in front of his face. He raised an eyebrow when he read the title of it. Mathematic Application in Fuinjutsu. Itachi looked to the side and found Naruto was running like his life depended on it. Naruto was jumping through the branches and thick foliage, hoping the Uchiha was not going to wait, Naruto-kun. Oh shit. Naruto's mind went haywire, and Kurama jokingly chanting "run for your life" in the back of his mind was not helping either. Naruto moved faster, caution thrown to the wind as branches broke under his feet from the increased speed. Itachi had to take a different route than the one Naruto used because the younger destroyed it. "You left something," Itachi shouted. He could go faster and simply catch the younger boy, but it was obvious Naruto was terrified of him for some reason, and doing so would risk him harming Naruto accidentally. Naruto's left eye twitched violently when he heard what Itachi said. Who was going to buy that? As soon as he reached the border of the forest he shouted, "Tori." The Anbu was almost knocked off of his feet because the moment he appeared with Shushin Naruto tackled him. "Oof. Tori. Save me." Okay, not the smartest thing he had ever said, but he was too terrified to think otherwise. Tori raised an eyebrow at the Uchiha heir who shrugged nonchalantly. "Okay Itachi-kun, what's going on here?" Itachi was a fresh Chunin that had been considered for a place on his squad, so he knew who the prodigy was. "I just wanted to return this to him, that's all," the Uchiha heir replied honestly, pulling out a sheet of paper with neat handwriting to show the Anbu. Tori sighed and looked at the trembling child in his arms. "I feel this is a long story Hokage-sama would like to hear." The Sandaime rubbed his throbbing cranium as his eyes rested briefly on Itachi, who looked as stoic as ever, then to the Anbu squad he had assigned to guard Naruto, and lastly to Naruto who was hiding behind Tori's legs, clinging onto the Anbu's pants as though his life depended on it. It had been a while since Naruto had been reduced to that state. The last time was when the boy was 4 and had believed the orphanage matron when she'd said there was a monster under his bed. So it's all a misunderstanding. Saratobi Hiruzen asked as he quirked an eyebrow at the Uchiha scion. "Yes, Hokage-sama." Then he turned to the still hidden Naruto and showed the boy the paper he found. "And I believe this is yours, Naruto-kun." Naruto eyed the paper longingly, then looked at Tori and the Sandaime. Sandaime sighed. "Itachi-kun, can you tell me the more detailed version? Because stumbling upon Naruto-kun and having a brief chat with him when he suddenly runs away doesn't explain much," he said in exasperation. Well, he had asked for a brief report. Itachi stiffened, then shifted a little. "Hokage-sama, I'm afraid it's not my story to tell if you want the details of our conversation." Sandaime Hokage narrowed his eyes at Itachi then at Naruto. It seemed both of them wanted to keep the conversation a secret. Very well, he pushed a small amount of chakra into a hidden seal near the window. "Anything said here will not leave this room." Naruto stared at the seal that glowed briefly a moment ago. So that's how privacy seals worked. "Naruto-kun," the young Jinchuriki jumped when the Uchiha called him. "Do you mind if we tell Hokage-sama what happened?" he asked. The young Jinchuriki flinched, wondering why Itachi even bothered to ask. He couldn't decide if the conversation was a harmless topic or not, so decided to give in and avoid suspicion. He had kept too many secrets from Sandaime Jaichin anyway. "I don't mind," he'd calmed down with the presence of familiar people around him. It was just he'd never been alone with a potentially hostile stranger that he knew of, which was why he'd panicked. Itachi smiled at that. "For starters, I did stumble upon Naruto who was sitting on a branch of a gigantic oak tree in the forest." Sandaime raised an eyebrow, gigantic oak tree in the North Forest. There's such a tree. Konoha, just like her namesake, was full of lush forests, and though a majority of gigantic trees grew in Training Ground 44, some were scattered all over Konoha. Most of the tree species were pine, cedar and yew, but never an oak. Sandaime grew trees about as often as breathing, so no one ever bothered to keep track of them all. Naruto nodded as he stepped forward. "Ichi no Kai, you know the tree Sandaime gave to the Uchiha clan as a gift." A spell of silence hung in the air as all eyes stared at Naruto. Even the stoic Uchiha Itachi stared at him with no small amount of incredulity. It was Sandaime who broke the silence. "There's such a tree. Eh?" Naruto had a very bad feeling he had just dropped a bomb with his trivia. Neither Kurama nor Naruto knew that said tree had been forgotten about in the Nidaime's era after the relationship between the two clans became sour once again, which was why not even Sandaime knew about the tree. "Never mind," Sandaime sighed. "So what were you talking about?" Itachi turned his focus back to the Hokage then answered. Naruto-kun's history essay, he said as he put the folded paper on the Hokage's desk. It's very good and he was kind enough to give it to me. Naruto shifted on his feet when Sandaime unfolded the paper and began to read his essay. It's very good as you said, Itachi-kun. Good enough to impress the Uchiha Saiyan, Sandaime noted amusedly. Itachi had always been a highly perceptive child wise beyond his years and spent much of his time researching the history of the village from the writings their ancestors left behind. While the essay was good and interesting to read, Sandaime was convinced that it wasn't the content that made Itachi interested but the disturbingly detailed narrative style it was in. While everything written in the essay could be found in history books, the way Naruto narrated it made it feel like he was watching the event with his own eyes, or at least heard it from someone who experienced the battle firsthand. That didn't explain why Naruto-kun ran away from you and gave you his essay, the Hokage continued, eyeing the prodigy as he searched for a sign of dishonesty. Itachi shrugged. I think it served as a diversion for his escape. Naruto cringed at how obvious he'd been. Itachi, on the other hand, was resigned about telling the Hokage the truth. Why he ran, that's probably because he is aware of how my clan avoids him and was pretty unnerved when I approached him. Naruto flinched at the attention that centered on him. Well, I know I'm not well liked, but only Uchihas turn on their heels whenever they see me. He fidgeted. And he looked pointedly at Itachi, approached me, and he even talked to me civilly, so I was getting cautious and nervous. Sandaime and the Anbu members cringed inwardly at Naruto's innocent confession. All this time they'd been under the impression Naruto was very trusting and friendly to anyone who gave him even a shred of attention, yet it seemed they had been wrong. I'm sorry I ran away, Uchiha-san, Naruto said as he gave Itachi a low bow. I'm just not used to strangers, at least, not since he'd found out about Kurama and his status. I didn't mean to be rude. Itachi shook his head. You don't have to apologize, being vigilant and cautious are good traits for shinobi. Naruto preened under the compliment. No matter what Kurama said about Uchihas, Itachi sounded sincere. And I believe I should return this. But before that, Hokage interrupted their exchange, partially relieved the misunderstanding was solved. Can I see that paper? Naruto blanched, but there was nothing he could do. He gave Itachi a reluctant nod to hand the paper over to Sandaime. Busted. Sandaime's eyes widened when he saw what was written on the paper. It was basic research on Fuinjutsu, but very elaborate and intelligible. You're learning Fuinjutsu, Naruto-kun. He was definitely his parents' child, a budding Fuinjutsu prodigy. Naruto nodded wordlessly. Can I see your other notes? Much to everyone's shock, Naruto backed away like a frightened rabbit and hugged his backpack protectively. Naruto-kun. Tori said worriedly. He couldn't recall Naruto being so possessive over something aside from ramen. Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled softly, he had almost forgotten how protective and private the practitioner of the obscure art could be of their research and how much they hated someone to take a peek at their notes. Jiraiya had almost punched him in the jaw when he insisted on peering over his disciple's shoulder when he wrote his notes out of curiosity. If the stories about what Minato and Kushina did to anyone who dared to take a peek on their notes without permission were true, Sandaime mentally noted to warn Naruto's future teammates about proper conduct of privacy for Fuinjutsu practitioner. Kurama groaned in his cage as he watched his Jinchuriki's behavior. The Uzumaki always acted like mama bears protecting their cubs when it came to their research. It was an Uzumaki thing, though anyone who was taught by Uzumaki also acted like Jiraiya and Minato. Naruto was only just about to finish his research on basic study and already he was this protective. Kurama didn't even want to know what Naruto would do if someone dared to look at his personal seal research without permission in the future. Maybe the only mistakes old man Rakuto ever did was procreating Uchiha Senju and marrying that Uzumaki woman. Naruto-kun, I will return your notes and I will be careful with it, Sandaime promised. Naruto looked hesitant for a moment, then he gingerly approached Sandaime's desk and tiptoed to put his notes on it. Here, Jai-chan. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Sandaime smiled at the child as he carefully flipped the pages. Impressive. You're a budding prodigy in Fuinjutsu, Naruto-kun. Naruto preened under the praise. Really, he beamed, giving a mental nod to Kurama when the fox reminded him to stay vigilant. You have grown to be such a knowledgeable child, Naruto. Haha, I read a lot, Naruto admitted not so modestly. Ah yes, Sandaime nodded sagely as he gave Naruto his notes back. And you even know about Ichijin no Kai, something I didn't even know about. Where did you read it? Naruto froze in his tracks. Kurama, why doesn't Jai-chan know about that tree? The fox snorted, probably because peace between the Uchihas and Senjus didn't last long, so the tree, of course, was forgotten. Then what should I say? I can't tell them you told me. Naruto lamented, but Kurama didn't answer, so he was left to his own devices. Naruto smiled as he recalled what he found on the same day he climbed the tree for the first time. Hehehe, he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, I'm just guessing actually. Sandaime raised an eyebrow. On the top of the tree there's a carving of the Senju and Uchiha crest. Above it is Konoha's crest with the word Ichijin written. And since the tree is so big, much bigger than a normal tree, so I thought only the Shodaime could grow it out. Even if the Hokage sent his ninjas out to check, the story would fit since there was such a carving. The Sandaime nodded sagely. It seemed he was overthinking Naruto's resourcefulness. Well done, Naruto-kun. You found a precious monument, a legacy from our Shodaime. He mentally noted to issue a D rank to build a nice shiny signage and put sacred rope around the tree. Naruto smiled sheepishly. Thanks, Jai-chan. He said as he checked his notes and then rechecked to make sure it was placed properly, blissfully unaware of the sad look on the Sandaime's face. It seemed Naruto didn't trust him. And again, it was pretty normal for those who descended from the Uzumaki line. Sandaime sighed wearily, Naruto-kun, while it's fine to learn new things, it's frowned upon that you neglect your other subjects in school. Naruto shifted guiltily on his feet. You've skipped all your Taijutsu classes, and your marks, which became better last month, have dropped again, Sandaime said wearily. What can you say in your defense? Much to Naruto's relief, Tori stepped forward. Okage-sama, may I voice my opinion? He asked cordially. Sandaime nodded, I'm all ears, Tori. The Anbu cleared his throat. From my observations, Naruto-kun is not suited to the current curriculum of our academy, he stated sternly, and the boy stared openly at the bird mask Anbu. Most of the classes are counterproductive to Naruto-kun's development, and the instructors are not, the Anbu trailed off, looking for a fitting word. Proficient in dealing with a student like him. The Hokage flinched inwardly at the subtle way his Anbu phrased the predicament. Then please explain to me what kind of student Naruto-kun is and how we should provide him with a suitable tutelage. Tori grinned under his mask. Naruto-kun is a very talented child, and if we keep him in the academy, it would just curb his potential. Then after a beat he added, Naruto-kun has shown a remarkable aptitude for Fuinjutsu, a field of study that unfortunately is not provided in the academy. And we all know what an invaluable asset a Fuinjutsu practitioner is. Sandaime nodded sagely in agreement, the main defense mechanism of Konoha was the legacy of Uzumaki Mido, and she was the best practitioner in her generation. Jiraiya, Minato and Kushina were seal masters and the key players in previous wars, with the first traveling to maintain their spy network and the latters passed away. Konoha was down to mid-level practitioners who maintained Konoha's barrier and the defense mechanism Mido-sama left them. It was hard to nurture a talented seal master due to the high risk in learning and difficulties. Naruto-kun's potential as a Fuinjutsu practitioner should be utilized, it's an asset Konoha can't afford to lose, Tori stated with conviction. That alone should give him some privilege to further his studies in seals and other shinobi arts. The old Hokage held back a grin. Someone deserved a promotion for exploiting a loophole so as to give Naruto his education. Konoha had given many privileges to prodigies, though most of the time it was early graduation, like the one granted to Itachi, so the prodigy could gain field experience sooner. However, in Naruto's case, he was known as a prodigy in only certain field. I see Naruto-kun. The boy perked up at the Hokage, elated he was once again included in the conversation. You will spend the rest of this year in academy. And no more skipping classes. Naruto cringed at Sandaime's warning. I will talk with the academy's instructors about your circumstances. If everything went smoothly, no instructor would refuse to help Naruto anymore. In fact, they would be eager to help, or at least neutral. By the end of the year, I would like to see progress in the shinobi arts, especially Fuinjutsu. Naruto nodded again, hi. Especially Fuinjutsu, the Sandaime repeated. If you continue to make the same progress I have seen from your notes, you will be granted the privilege of an apprenticeship. Naruto gaped at that. Apprenticeship? What about the academy? The Hokage smiled at that. You won't be required to attend it anymore, which would make the instructors happy that they didn't have to deal with Naruto anymore. You will be considered graduated, but you won't be granted genin status until your master deems you genin level in the shinobi arts overall. The Sandaime finished his explanation, and as soon as the last word left his mouth, Naruto tackled him in a bear hug. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Naruto chanted happily, then he kissed the Sandaime's cheeks fervently. I love you, Hokage Jai-chan. You're the best. Sandaime chuckled softly as he ruffled Naruto's spiky hair. Yes, I am, but remember, it's you who has to work hard to earn these privileges. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Of course, Jai-chan. I'll work hard. He said as he released his hug, jumping backwards to land in front of the Hokage's desk. Naruto stood suddenly and bowed to the Sandaime with respect. Hokage-sama, I thank you for giving me this opportunity. I promise to dedicate myself to Fuinjutsu and other shinobi arts so that I will not betray your expectations. Sandaime looked at Naruto in surprise, startled to see such a mature, eloquent speech coming from a 6-year-old kid. Even Tori looked surprised and proud under his mask, while Itachi observed his fellow prodigy attentively. The old Kage shook his head with an amused smile on his face. It seemed they had underestimated Naruto a bit too much. I'm looking forward to it, Naruto-kun. You're someone who has seen how foolish humans become when consumed by hatred. Uchiha Itachi. Naruto woke up with cold sweat, drenching his whole body. He quickly gathered himself and moaned at his current state. He had to do his laundry twice a week at the rate he was using up his shirts whenever he woke up like this. He once contemplated sleeping naked, but that's not an option in autumn. It may not be as cold as winter, but it is still cold nonetheless. He knew he was still a child, and to be haunted by nightmares is normal for children like him. But Naruto wanted to act like a mature boy, since whenever he acted mature, the Sandaime would listen to him more, and so does the rest of his Anbu guards. All the times he acted as a brash and loud boy was simply to attract attention of villagers, but he realized that lately, he cared more for the attention of the few people who acknowledged him. So telling them about his nightmare was a big no-no. Especially if there is a chance that they might think that he was not mature enough after all, and therefore not ready to graduate early. No way in hell. Not to mention it was not a dream he could simply tell to anyone. The dream was always the same. Amidst the sound of rattling chains he saw a blonde baby who he recognized as himself due to the whisker-like marks on his face. He was cradled not by one but two pairs of arms, warm and loving. But there was so much blood and he cried as hard as he could to no avail, as the warm cradle became colder and colder. He also saw a massive claw, one he knew so well, which belonged to Kurama. He had cried himself hoarse when he realized what he was seeing, or at least what he thought he was seeing. The scene of his parents impaled in Kurama's claw. The scene of his parents dying from Kurama who was under someone else's control. I had parents, he whispered to himself. Anyone else would feel incredulous hearing him utter those words. Of course everyone had parents who gave birth to them. However, to a boy who has been orphaned for so long, the concept of having loving parents was foreign. Ironically enough, Kurama seemed to understand the concept better than him, since to Kurama, the sage of six paths was a father to the fox and the other Bijuus. Thus this dream was something he never told Kurama, and the fox never asked either. Naruto had forgiven Kurama for his parents' death, and that forgiveness was something he didn't have to say out loud. Both of them had come to an unspoken agreement of the forgiveness exchanged between them, it was mutual. Since then, academy instructors started to leave him alone, which for him was much better than the sabotage he once endured. It seemed that they really wanted him to get out of their hair as soon as possible, and Naruto wanted the same. At least for now the academy was the least of his problems. All he needed to do was do his best to get that apprenticeship right, and he'll be out of the academy. So Naruto poured all of his efforts to do his best for the rest of the year, to further his studies in every field. He really was not required to be the best in practice in other fields aside from Fuinjutsu, so he could still work on his own pace in theory and focus in his chosen field. Much to Naruto's delight, the Sandaime gave him his full support and even went as far as to give his old books for Naruto as a birthday present. Hori warned Naruto about his naturally large chakra reserves and suggested that he start to learn chakra control exercises early on, because if he didn't, he would be bound to screw up in chakra-sensitive techniques. So Naruto started to squeeze in tree climbing and water walking in his already heavily packed schedule. While life was good for Naruto, he noticeably started to distance himself from his classmates. If before he kept trying to get their attention, now he was too busy with his studies that he completely neglected his already non-existent social life with his peers. It was worrying the Sandaime, but he couldn't blame Naruto for focusing in his studies. Then again it seemed that Naruto had given up on trying to form any friendships with his classmates. All the boy could think about was getting out of the academy and fulfilling the Sandaime's expectation. Naruto still called him Jai-chan from time to time, but whenever they talked about his apprenticeship Naruto would switch to Hokage-sama. He had no idea where Naruto learned how to act professional and awkwardly mature at times, but it was obvious that Naruto tried to adapt speaking like this with his most frequent companions, which consisted of the Hokage, the Ichiraku family and his Anbu detail. But it was not healthy for a boy his age to only socialize with adults, and Anbu shouldn't be Naruto's most frequent companions. The Sandaime brought this topic up with the Anbu squad he assigned to protect Naruto, and thankfully they had a solution. Hopefully Naruto could bond with someone around his age before he graduated and completely cut himself off from his peers in pursuit of knowledge. Naruto was becoming too much like Orochimaru for his comfort. While the Sandaime was worrying over his non-existent social life, Naruto was over the moon with each passing week that put him closer to his dream. With his latest report to the Hokage about his studies, it was almost a sealed deal that by the end of academy year, he would be introduced to a seal master to be apprenticed. Life was good, however there was one problem still hanging over his head. Namely Uchiha Itachi, the scion of Uchiha clan who had been a constant companion of his for the last few weeks. It was not like the Uchiha heir treated him badly, it was actually the opposite. Uchiha Itachi was trying to be his friend, or at least he thought that was what the older boy had been attempting in the last few weeks. Naruto eyed the Uchiha who had occupied his favorite haunt, namely the branches of the Ikki no Kai. The tree had become a sacred monument of Konoha, but the Sandaime allowed him to use the said tree, as long as he took a good care of it. The tree was so old it was imbued by Hashirama's chakra, and those who knew the man would have felt it. It was actually one of the reasons why they allowed him to use the precious monument, hoping to calm the Biju and lessening the risk of escape. Fortunately for them it worked somewhat, but not for the reasons they suspect. Kurama didn't like the tree, but it soothed him, not because of Hashirama's chakra, but because he inherited his ancestor's body. Thus to Biju, Hashirama's tree had some sort lingering scent of their creator. Like how a child would feel safe and comforted by something with their mother's scent. Good afternoon Uchiha-san. He rarely called someone with their proper honorifics, since to him it was a sign of unfamiliarity. He was still wary of the Uchiha, but he was willing to give Itachi the benefit of doubt. After all, it was partially thanks to Itachi that he got a chance to prove himself. Just call me Itachi. The prodigy suggested as Naruto pushed himself up to sit on the branch. You can add senpai if you insist on calling me with honorifics. Naruto nodded hesitantly, okay Itachi-senpai. For some reason he couldn't comprehend why Itachi started visiting the Uchiha no Kai around same time he did. There were not much words exchanged between them. Itachi would come out of nowhere, greet him politely, then ask about his day in the academy. Greetings he would return with a curt nod and same amount of politeness. Eventually, the Uchiha science started bringing him treats, and not just candy kind, but Japanese sweets like dango, yakin, mochi, etc. Naruto couldn't recall just when Itachi started sitting beside him in the same branch of Uchiha no Kai, eating Japanese sweets and drinking green tea. Unless Itachi was on mission, he always arrived at the same time in the afternoon at 4 p.m. and only stays for 20 minutes tops. The topics of their conversations were light and would shift from the weather to the taste of sweets and exchange of greetings. It was like they're maintaining some sort of status quo. A status quo both Naruto and Kurama were running out patience for, especially when Tori not so subtly implied that the Anbu squad allowed Itachi to keep him company whenever he visited the tree. Apparently they were worried about his lack of friends and thought Itachi would be good for him. The Uchiha heir had a younger brother Naruto's age, and while Itachi was 4 years older than him, he too was still considered a kid like Naruto. He was also a prodigy, and they thought he could relate to Naruto. They arranged for him to have a play dates with Uchiha Itachi. Imagine the Kurama was throwing tantrums on his cage and demanded him to stop visiting the damn tree. Naruto pointed out they had no choice because unless Kurama could think of a reasonable excuse to give to Tori, it would be too suspicious for someone as lonely as he was to reject company. Not to mention Naruto somewhat felt guilty for his behavior towards the young heir in their first encounter. In short, there was no way out for him but to endure the play dates. At the start of third week of their somewhat awkward afternoon routine, Naruto found the Uchiha heir waiting for him in the same branch again. As usual, the Uchiha was sitting on the branch in a lotus position, a small package of sweets and a thermos of green tea by his side. He looked as serene as ever and was patiently waiting for Naruto's arrival. It made Naruto wonder if this guy didn't have better things to do. Wasn't he a newly recruited Anbu? Then again, he was part of Tori's squad, so accompanying Naruto was probably part of his job. He could always appreciate a company, but not from an enigma like Itachi. He couldn't put a finger on what kind of person Itachi was, and he wondered if he wanted to know the Uchiha at all. Good afternoon Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded hesitantly. Itachi-senpai, were you waiting for me? He asked as he pushed himself to stand on the thick branch. Itachi nodded. Yes, I wish to speak to you, it's important. Naruto was not used to feeling surprised. He was the one who always takes everyone by surprise after all. Then again, this was the famed prodigious Ion of Uchiha. He thought that he would be the one to confront Itachi to know the older boy's true objectives in approaching him, but Itachi beat him to it. What would you like to talk about? Naruto asked politely. You don't have to be so formal with me Naruto-kun, you're even less formal with Hokage-sama than you are to me. Itachi pointed out sternly. Naruto shrugged. Fine senpai, but I am still at a loss as to why you even want to talk with someone like me. It is someone like you that I want to talk with. Itachi replied swiftly. The Jinchuriki raised an eyebrow at Itachi, like what? You're someone who has seen how foolish humans become when consumed by hatred. Itachi told the younger boy bluntly. Naruto's eyes went wide as he suddenly stood, and then he unconsciously took a step back from Itachi. Then he burst into a fit of laughter. Wow. Nice one, senpai. You have a flair for theatrics. Is it an Uchiha art? Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Naruto continued to forcibly laugh. Ha 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 ha. HN. This is getting ridiculous. What this guy is up to. I heard that, this Uchiha is sharp, damn it. Kurama cursed. Don't let him to take the reins in this conversation, or better yet ditch him. The Biju suggested helpfully. He groaned inwardly. I will look too suspicious if I did it again. Better get him to spill now than dragging it on. WHATEVER I will take a nap, go learn how to deal with an Uchiha by yourself, but keep your head where it belongs. And with that Kurama went back to sleep, keeping an eye open just in case his Jinchuriki screwed up. Naruto snapped at the older boy, get to the point. Screw subtlety. Mind games are not my forte. I am 7. He shouted at Itachi, pointing an accusing finger at the Uchiha's scion. I am not playing mind games with you Naruto-kun. Itachi assured the younger boy. Naruto slumped back to his sitting position, fine. I just don't have the patience for talking in circles. The young Jinchuriki stated with a huff, are you implying that I know why they hate me? Now it was his turn to be as blunt as a rampaging rhino, giving the Uchiha a taste of his own medicine. Itachi's eyes widened for a moment before he schooled his stoic face back. I see. It seemed Naruto had found out about his Jinchuriki status from some source. Then again it was not that much a stretch of the imagination since wherever went, whispers about demons, and the Kyuubi followed the child like a plague. Naruto had an aptitude for Fuinjutsu, a branch of study that requires perceptiveness, so it won't be impossible for the child to put 2 and 2 together. Especially once he learned about the applications of Fuinjutsu, sealing demons after all was one of the first objectives in the creation of Fuinjutsu. The blonde snorted, what did you see now, I wonder? He gritted his teeth, so I am right, you just wanted to confirm that the majority of village already distrusts him, it would seem that this person was just another in that already long list. What else is new, Naruto thought sarcastically. Itachi flinched inwardly, his lips curved down. I mean no harm Naruto-kun. He stated sternly, at this point you must have understood the basic theory of Fuinjutsu, and villagers are never subtle to show their animosity towards you, I wanted to know what you would do about it. Naruto glared at the Uchiha heir, if you're afraid that I am going to do something stupid as taking revenge on them, you needn't worry, rest assured the occasional prank is as far as I would go. He waved his hand in negative, as far I'm concerned, hating them back is not going to make me happier. He gritted his teeth as his eyes closed, I will just sink to their level. Itachi looked at Naruto with an unreadable expression, but there was an unmistakable spark of gratitude and admiration in his eyes. That's very wise of you, this boy hadn't even lived through war or witnessed countless lives lost as those left behind mourn their passing. But Naruto understood the misplaced hatred the villagers have, that they wanted someone to blame on for their loss, and he understands that returning their hatred would just make the pain last longer, and in doing so the wounds that everyone kept in their hearts would never mend. The Jinchuriki snorted, I am no saint though, I believe life is easier when you take it in stride. He gritted his teeth, but that doesn't change the fact that they want to make my life as miserable as they could, so I am reasonably wary of anyone who approaches me. The Chunin tilted his head to the side, and then he sighed. I hope so far I have done nothing that could make you think I hate you for your burden. He drawled calmly. Naruto shook his head, look Itachi-senpai, I don't know why you keep me company for the last 2 weeks, and I am torn between being grateful and terrified of you. But Itachi opened his mouth to refute. Naruto cut him off, no. Don't you understand? I am aware of your clan's position right now. Itachi blanched at that, which is why I am reasonably wary of you. Itachi paused as he contemplated Naruto's statement and then after a beat he replied. You're right. Naruto looked at the older boy incredulously, you just accepted it. Just like that. Yes. Itachi nodded, you're right, it's inevitable to be wary of a member of clan with a traitorous history. To be honest I have to say that it's wise of you to be wary of us, especially because of what you hold. His blue eyes couldn't get wider as he stared at Itachi with a mix of disbelief and astonishment. He shook his head, I can't believe you just approved of my paranoia concerning your clan, but before you get any ideas no, I have nothing against the Uchiha clan personally. It's just, could you talk with it? Itachi asked with a voice that tinted with curiosity. Naruto glared at the Uchiha, if I say yes, are you going to think I am possessed and report me to Hokage-Jiichin? Itachi shook his head, I remember how its chakra feels, if you're possessed I am sure I can tell. Then after a beat he added, I promise I will not report this conversation to Hokage-sama unless you give me your consent. Naruto sighed in relief, thanks, but it's him nodded. He corrected, then he eyed Itachi who raised an eyebrow at him cynically. You're a shinobi and yet you tell me you will keep my secret from Jai-chan if I ask you? Just like that? Naruto asked in disbelief. The Uchiha nodded, you have your reasons to keep it a secret and you have no intention to harm our village, in spite of your suffering because of them you have right to keep your secrets at least. He listed on, and then he added. I have a brother your age, just a few months older than you. Oh? What was he getting at? That night my parents were out and I was left behind to tend for my brother. I didn't see the Kyuubi firsthand, but I can feel his chakra. Itachi rubbed his temple as the terrible memory resurfaced. The Kyuubi's chakra was dangerous. Children were crying the moment they felt it. If Yondaime-sama didn't seal him as soon as he did, the casualties wouldn't be just from ninja on the front lines, those who were already physically weak like the elders, pregnant mothers, infants. At that point they would have died just from exposure, including my brother. Itachi stood suddenly and bowed to Naruto with respect. That night everyone was desperate to protect our village, and Konoha would have been no more if not for your sacrifice. For bearing that burden for all of us and not giving in to hatred, I can't thank you enough. That was the longest sentence Naruto ever heard from Itachi. He knew people who cared for him were grateful for his sacrifice, but Itachi was the first to honestly express that gratitude to him, to say it out loud for him. For once someone was being plainly honest to him. Maybe Itachi really deserved that benefit of doubt. Naruto rubbed his temple, a smile painted on his lips. I guess you're really different after all. Itachi raised an eyebrow. I will ask you one thing, and I want you to answer it honestly, Itachi-senpai. I will. Itachi vowed. Do you hate him? My tenant? Naruto asked. That was an unexpected query, and it caught him off guard. Do I hate him? Itachi echoed. He never thought Naruto would ask how he feels about the Bijuu, who was also the source of the growing distrust towards his clan. To be honest, I should hate him, considering that he is the reason my clan is ostracized by our village. However, that's if he really is a natural disaster and was not controlled by my kin to attack Konoha like they suspected. Then again, in that situation the Kyuubi is enemy of Konoha. As one of her shinobi I shall protect her from him out of duty and love for the village, not because of any personal feeling such as hatred. Naruto blinked owlishly. There's nothing that could knock this guy off of his feet, huh? But his reason was more believable that way. Well, that's so rational of you, Itachi-senpai. He admitted, then called his tenant mentally. Kurama, sorry for disturbing your nap, but what do you think of him? I heard everything, and while I still don't like the Uchiha or this boy, I have to say he is a lot more logical than any Uchiha I was unfortunate enough to meet. Kurama grunted. Unfortunately for him, the village's suspicion towards his clan is not wrong. And Uchiha was the culprit who controlled me years ago. What? Naruto shouted, startling Itachi, but the older boy was calm enough not to show it. Naruto covered his mouth as he realized that he accidentally talked to Kurama out loud. Kurama. You didn't tell me that. I thought it's easy to put two and two together. I told you I was controlled. Hashirama is dead, and you know how my previous hosts treated me. Of course it's an Uchiha. Well, when you put it that way, Naruto flushed mentally, then he looked at Itachi. How the hell he was going to break it to the older boy. It seems, the villagers' suspicion towards your clan, eh? Itachi closed his eyes, gritting his teeth. So it's not misplaced. He looked at Naruto. This is actually another question I need the answer from you, Naruto-kun. I want to know if it's really someone from my clan who caused that tragedy. His gaze hardened. Could he tell you who it is? Did he recognize anything that we can use to identify the culprit? Wait. It was the first time Naruto saw Itachi on the brink of losing his composure. Give me time to talk with him, please. Itachi flinched guiltily at that as he waited for Naruto to speak again with his Bijuu. Kurama, do you know which Uchiha? Madara. Kyuubi spat in disgusted tone. Naruto face-palmed. Kurama, that better be not your grudge talking. Kurama groaned, then again he had to admit his memory of that night was not the best. He was wearing a mask that only has one hole for a Sharingan eye and was wearing black cloak. His chakra is foul and full of hatred, typical of the Uchiha. If he is not Madara, he might as well be the second coming of the bastard. Kurama muttered scornfully. Naruto nodded. He said the culprit is wearing a mask that only shows his right Sharingan eye. His chakra is full of hatred. Naruto titled his head to the side. He said it's typical for Uchiha for some reason. Itachi swallowed heavily at that. So even the Kyuubi think so. Maybe the Uchiha really is a cursed clan. Considering his long-standing grudge against the Uchiha, you shouldn't take it too seriously. Naruto said bluntly before he could stop himself. Itachi eyed him curiously. I mean, at least I can say that you're not a bad person, Itachi-senpai. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Itachi muttered solemnly. Naruto nodded hesitantly. You're welcome, and I guess I should start blaming this guy or something. He shook his head. I doubt he is even in the village right now, though, since my tenant would have been throwing tantrums more often if he ever feels the guy anywhere even near Konoha. And unless that guy had a legitimate reason to cause so much destruction. Naruto gave himself a mental shake. He already had enough on his plate for today. For now he had to survive and stay sane. That was a hard enough task. Itachi rubbed his throbbing cranium. There went his plan to find the culprit and hand the bastard over to Hokage-sama to regain Konoha's trust. This is so messed up. He concluded wearily. I'm starting to think that every time a truth comes up it's bound to be a mess. Naruto muttered sardonically. So, what are you going to do now that you have learned the truth you wanted, Itachi-senpai? He asked curiously. For the first time since Naruto knew Itachi Uchiha, the prodigy looked really lost. I don't know. He admitted honestly. How do you deal with this, Naruto-kun? You're asking me? Naruto asked back incredulously. I told you, I just take it all in stride I guess, and work hard for the best. Even if the villagers don't like me any better than before, my life is starting to look up. I now have something to pursue, to live up to the legacy of my clan. Everyone I care about could be proud of the present me, now that I am no longer a failure." Itachi chuckled softly at that, earning a raised eyebrow from the blonde. "What's so funny?" Itachi shook his head, wearing an apologetic look on his face, as he realized that he might have offended the younger boy. "Pardon me, but it's just from what I gathered you're far from being a failure, both as a human and as a Jinchuriki." He stated firmly, "I haven't met any other Jinchuriki, but I have heard that those who are shunned by their people usually grow distant, uncontrollable, and are sometimes even driven to madness. I thought any info on Jinchuriki is closely guarded by each village." Naruto wondered out loud. "No secret is safe in war, especially when it comes to full-scale wars like the Shinobi Wars," Itachi said solemnly. Naruto eyed Itachi skeptically. "I see, so I am pretty stable by Jinchuriki standards?" he asked curiously. "If half of the things I heard about what other villages have to deal with their Jinchuriki are right, I have to say Konoha is very lucky to have you," Itachi said honestly. On his last mission he worked with a jounin that had a mission involving a short visit to Suna. The senior told Itachi that he had seen a boy around Naruto's age killing someone out of the blue. "Nice to know I am appreciated for being sane," Naruto droned, shaking his head in disbelief. He then eyed the older boy dubiously. "Itachi is holding out a hand to him, is that what I think it is?" "It is," Itachi said cordially, his lips curved up to a small and barely noticeable smile as Naruto accepted his hand. "This is the start of a very unlikely and awkward." Naruto trailed off, but the smile on his face betrayed his feelings. "Friendship," Itachi finished. "But I am sure the awkwardness will wear off with time." Naruto moaned, "Great, do I have to deal with you rationalizing everything all the time from now on?" Itachi nodded, "Someone has to be a voice of reason, Naruto-kun. I am sure I will appreciate that," Naruto said with a grin, ignoring Kurama who lamented the inevitable and how they were going to regret this one day. Perhaps the Uchiha no Kai was really more than just a monument, and under that tree's blessing, he gained his first friend. HN. "Oh. The famous HN of the Uchiha," Naruto chirped, rolling his eyes. "By the way, speaking of your clan, Itachi-senpai, the Uchiha is a clan of fire breathers, right?" He nodded, "Yes," Itachi answered. "Why?" Naruto grinned from ear to ear. "Perfect. Is there anyone in your clan that you think would volunteer to be an experimental subject? You mean, stupid enough to be a guinea pig for your demonstrations which might involve explosions among other things?" Itachi rephrased in stoic tone. Naruto's left eye twitched, and here I tried to make it sound humane. "HN." The blonde Jinchuriki face palmed, "How Uchiha of you?" he complimented theatrically. 3 days later, Uchiha Shisui didn't know what to think when Itachi asked for help in some sort of mock spar to demonstrate some new shinobi products. His younger cousin was a genius, and he'd also like to think himself as one, even though he may not be of Itachi's caliber, but most of the time even he couldn't understand Itachi's train of thought. Then again, his favorite cousin was just that special. "Sure," he answered without second though. "What kind of stuff we're going to do a demo for?" "High quality seals," was Itachi's curt answer. 1 hour later, Shisui had one opinion of the tags the blonde boy generously gave him. "Awesome stuff. This is the fire seal ever," he exclaimed while looking at the cross-shaped burn mark on the ground. They were in Training Ground 22, which consisted of rocky ground that was the typical terrain found in Earth Country. Naruto stared at the Uchiha, wondering if this was a mutated Uchiha or an adopted one, judging from how un-Uchiha-like he acted. Itachi in the first glance was a typical Uchiha, though one could say that he is actually a bit off as an Uchiha. Shisui was even weirder, and so carefree. Then again, so far all his info on how Uchiha were supposedly like came from Kurama. Thanks," he said awkwardly. "I am glad to hear that." Deep inside he wanted to whoop at the praise, but decided to against it in front of a stranger like Shisui. Shisui raised an eyebrow at the socially awkward child, acting mature and polite that didn't fit for someone his age. How unlike the little Sasuke who would have been beaming with glee when praised. "No wonder you're Itachi's new friend, you're as awkward as he is." "Pardon me? What did you say just now?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. The oldest Uchiha in vicinity stared at the blonde in disbelief, then looked at his younger cousin. "What did you do, Itachi?" he said. "Pardon me, him. A kid as old as Sasuke-chan." Itachi frowned at his cousin. "Pardon me?" he echoed. "What makes you think it's my fault?" The said cousin scoffed. "Well, kids Naruto-chan's age are supposed to whoop and grin when praised." "Chan?" Naruto drawled in an indignant tone. Itachi face-palmed while Shisui was grinning from ear to ear. The younger Uchiha could tell where his cousin's train of thought was going. Shisui was trying to get Naruto to show his real personality. Itachi knew Naruto always put his guard on whenever he meets a stranger, acting polite, stiff and distant. Unless he was pressured like what Itachi did to him, Naruto won't show even a shred of his real personality. Especially since Shisui was supposed to be Itachi's sparring partner to field test his seals, to Naruto Shisui was some just sort of business partner. Yes, Naruto-chan. Shisui was nodding sagely, you're 7 right? So you're Naruto-chan, you're even shorter than little cousin Sasuke. And here I thought he was a midget. The use of past tense wasn't lost on Naruto as the blonde boy struggled to keep his temper in check. Who did he call a midget? How dare he? Naruto roared inwardly, but all he said in reality was, I see no, he did not see at all. In his mindscape Naruto was throwing a tantrum in front of Kurama's cage, much to the fox's amusement. I almost thought that you've really growing up, it's a relief to see a small insult like that could still get on your nerves so easily. Kurama, the fix opened one eye, yeah. Do you know any methods to grow taller? He asked hopefully. I guess. Kurama answered curtly, go drink lots of dairy products and eat and high protein stuff. As usual Kurama opted give him advice in a single sentence and hoped his host could figure out the rest. It always worked anyway. HMPH. Fine Kurama. As he finished his mental conversation which lasted for no longer than few seconds Naruto turned to Itachi, raising an eyebrow asking a silent question, how he could stand Shisui. Which was replied by a shrug by the Uchiha heir, translated as he grew used to it. Shisui's left eyebrow was twitching dangerously as he watched the silent exchange, I can't believe you, Itachi. You corrupted a kid like Naruto-chan. He shouted indignantly, pointing an accusing finger at the stoic boy. Itachi face-palmed, Shisui, be quiet. Naruto decided to copy Itachi's strategy, just tolerate Shisui's antics before his hair got prematurely gray. He cleared his throat, Hokage-sama is coming soon, do you need more time to experiment with the seal? Would you like me to explain how it works again? He asked in a solemn tone. Itachi nodded, maybe we should wait for Hokage-sama and the seal master, that way you won't have to repeat it later. Oh, I guess that would be good. Naruto agreed with a nod. Shisui titled his head to the side, curiously eyeing the stack of tags on the wooden stump that Naruto used as a table. His eyes were drawn to ball-shaped bomb with seal array and kanji for Hikari on it. Hey Naruto-chan, you didn't explain that tag to us. It's a new flash tag right, he pointed at the flash bomb. Naruto shook his head fervently, don't even think about it Shisui-senpai. He warned the cheerful Uchiha, I have yet to test that flash bomb properly and I don't want anyone especially Dijutsu users like you to be blinded by the end of the day. He shuddered mentally, maybe inventing that flash bomb was not the best idea, but Kurama was very adamant about it in case they ran to that bastard Uchiha who controlled him again. Shisui blinked when he saw Itachi scoop the 3 small round bombs and hand it to Naruto, you better keep it with you then before my dear cousin gets any ideas. The onyx-eyed shinobi muttered. Oh Naruto's sweat dropped as he put the bombs back to his backpack, both of them ignoring Shisui's indignant shouts. Thank you Itachi-senpai. It's better to be safe than sorry. Then he turned to Shisui, and I told you to keep it down cousin. Itachi said in chiding tone. I am older than both of you. Shisui reminded them. Naruto's eyes widened in faked shock, you are. I keep forgetting that myself. Itachi admitted, his voice devoid of emotion, but the slight shake of his shoulders gave away his mirth. He certainly didn't act his age Naruto-kun. Shisui moaned, great. Now there are 2 smart asses I have to deal with. Shisui, mind your language. Itachi chided him, you're the one who called him Naruto-chan, and yet you use such language around him. The curly-haired Uchiha pouted, I know. Shisui huffed, Sasuke-chan is my favorite cousin now, and you're the new least favorite cousin. Right under Tekka. Shisui exclaimed triumphantly. Itachi nursed his throbbing cranium, Shisui of all people he put him below that Tekka. Their cousin who was 5 years older, but just recently promoted as a chunin. He had been glaring daggers at them since the last exam because Shisui's team gave Tekka's problem in 2nd round and on the 3rd round, Itachi defeated him in less than 10 minutes. Uchiha prodigy or not, Tekka's pride was severely crushed in being defeated by a 10-year-old kid. Yeah. Tekka. That Tekka. Shisui howled. Shisui. Itachi said in berating tone. The cheery Uchiha looked really happy boasting that Itachi was below this Tekka person, maybe a stuck-up cousin of theirs. And for once Itachi looked really insulted by the arrangement. HMHM ha ha ha. Both Uchiha stopped as they stared at Naruto, the blonde Jinchuriki was laughing, his eyes closed, but they could see a glimmer of bright azure under golden eyelashes that shone with delight. Naruto hunched over as holding his stomach, his lips curved up to a wide grin as he tried to keep his laughter in control, but light chuckles still escaped him. Ha ha. Naruto cleared his throat, flushing a bit red on his cheeks. Sorry the next thing he knew, Shisui had glumped him. Gosh, it's like seeing the mini Itachi losing his composure. Shisui cackled mischievously, lifting Naruto up enthusiastically, earning a yelp from the blonde. How cubic his sentence was cut short by a kick on his face. Gah. Naruto didn't know what possessed him, but he had acted on instinct. The moment someone he still dubbed as stranger went too familiar and had gone as far as hugging him, he kicked said person. And then he ran to the only familiar person nearby and tried to hide. He froze when he realized what he had done and wondered if Shisui would be angry. Unexpectedly Shisui burst to a fit of laughter. "Oh my god, Itachi. He is hiding behind you. He is shy." Itachi looked at Naruto, who looked ready to curl up to a ball, and decided he had to save the younger boy from further unintentional humiliation by Shisui. "I think that's enough from you, don't tease him, Shisui. You know who he is and how villagers treat him." Shisui stiffened at the reprimand. He is not used to someone he just met getting overly familiar with him. Not to mention hugging him, Itachi added on his mind. He remembered before their conversation, Naruto was very skittish around him and that he had to approach the boy with caution. Shisui looked apologetic as he crouched down, so his eyes were in Naruto's level. "I am sorry, Naruto-chan. Bad habit of mine." Naruto titled his head to the side as he contemplated what the uchiha said. He nodded slowly. "I am sorry for overreacting too, Shisui-senpai." Even so, he was still unwilling to leave his comfort zone, namely behind Itachi's legs. Why was his paranoia was eating at him this much? God. Being cautious was one thing, paranoia was making him crazy. He rolled his eyes inwardly when Kurama told him that if being paranoid could get him to live for another day, it was worth it. Kurama had almost zero concern regarding quality of his host's life, then again considering his life for the last few centuries. "No problem, Naruto-chan." Shisui assured him, laughing at the sight of Naruto's strained smile that didn't match the throbbing vein on his temple. "Naruto-kun." Two Uchihas and one Uzumaki turned to see the Hokage approaching, smiling genially at them. Naruto's eyes were briefly drawn to a man who walked a few steps behind the Sandaime. He was probably in his mid to late 30s, a soft smile in his face made him appear to mild-mannered, curly dark brown hair that parted on the left and eyes of the same color framed by square glasses. He wore a black kimono and a white haori with kanji for Fuin on his right and left sleeves. They bowed in respect to their village leader, Hokage-sama. The Hokage returned it with curt nod. "I see you have become friends with Itachi and Shisui, Naruto-kun." The old Kage didn't even bother to conceal his relieved sigh, earning a puzzled look from the blonde boy. Then he turned to the man who stood a few steps behind him. "This is Aizen Sasuke, the current head of the Fuin division of Konoha." Naruto looked at the gentle-looking man. Rather than looking like a shinobi, he looked like a scholar. Then again, you could never judge a shinobi from his or her looks, most of the time at least. Aizen smiled genially at the blonde, leaning down so he could look at Naruto in the eye. "Hello, Naruto-kun, I am Aizen Sasuke and I will be your teacher." The young Jinchuriki tried his best to smile. "That is, if I can impress you with my meager skills, Aizen-san." He reminded the seal master modestly. Aizen shook his head. "Nonsense, I have seen your research notes and I am very impressed." Then he looked at the Sandaime. "After studying those, I don't think I'm going to let anyone else get their hands on him." Tsurutobi chuckled softly, eager to utilize the potential of a young talent Aizen. Itachi didn't know why, but his instincts told him to be wary of Aizen Sasuke. He had rarely seen anyone from the Fuin division because most of them spend a majority of their career in their headquarters to maintain Konoha's barrier and other Fuin jutsu defenses that the Shodaime's wife left for Konoha. While they were an important part of Konoha's defense force, they were relatively weak compared to other divisions when it comes to physical strength. They mostly do paperwork like the Chunin secretaries at the Hokage Tower, which is why it is easy to consider them to be more like scholars than shinobi. Frontline seal masters were rare, and as rare as they were, the level of mastery of most of them was sketchy. Not everyone could juggle between research and combat practice, and attempting Fuin jutsu in battle was quite a feat even as support. Konoha currently only had Jiraiya and Kakashi, and while a number of Jounin may have a little above average skill in the obscure art, none of them could use more Fuin jutsu save Kuchiyas in the heat of battle. While Naruto with his Jinchuriki status was more suitable for the front lines, his lineage would make Konoha's upper echelon keep him in check. He was in Uzumaki, a clan with unparalleled skill in Fuin jutsu. While Konoha could use Uzumaki Mito's legacy from generation to generation, no seal masters including Jiraiya were capable enough to modify, improve or fix the seals. It was an untouchable work of art of the highest caliber in Fuin jutsu. If there's anyone with potential to create seals of that caliber, it would be Uzumaki Naruto. He could see what Konoha wanted and what the Hokage would do to give it to her. Itachi ran through the rocky ground, hopping from one rock to another. Shisui was ahead, and both of them were well aware that they were heading to a clearing. Shisui's grin was a signal that Itachi should start attacking. The prodigy jumped, his Sharingan came to life as four shuriken-shaped objects were held between his fingers. It looked like normal shuriken at a first glance, but it was made of ceramic not metal, and the tips were not sharp but tapered, a rune carved from each tip to the center which held Hanu engraving. He threw it with admirable precision, two of them passing Shisui, and as soon as both landed on the ground, the seal carved on it glowed briefly before cross-shaped fire sprouted from its tips, forming a wall of fire. Whoa. Shisui yelped as he was trapped in a square formation of Kaiten no Jujika Fuin, fire element cross seal. The older Uchiha grinned as he backed away from the fire, only to stop on his tracks the moment another wall of fire erupted and blocked his escape route. Shisui shunshined away from the cage of fire with ease and reappeared 10 feet away from his original position. His Sharingan eyes widened as he bent backward to avoid another of the same seal-carved projectile, which was this time already active as it cut through the air. Shisui could feel the intense heat on the tip of his nose as he missed the flaming current of the projectiles by 2 inches as they whizzed past him. The Sandaime smiled bemusedly at the two Uchiha, it seemed that they enjoyed their fiery spar. Then again the Uchiha were always a clan of pyromaniacs, his sensei used to tell him. That's enough. Itachi. Shisui. Shisui seemed unsatisfied at cutting the experiment short, but Itachi shot him a warning glance. The two Uchiha walked back to where the spectators of the spar sat, under an adenium tree which was the only tree that grew in that training ground. Aizen Sasu clapped a few times, a gentle smile firmly in place. That's prodigious, as expected of the Uchiha clan. Naruto-kun only told you how to activate the seal and its functions, but you figured out how to apply it in battle yourself. Itachi nodded, thank you for your kind words Aizen Dono, the last seal I used Kaiten no Jujika Fuin, seems very useful to corner opponents and can be used as a surprise attack. He turned to Naruto as he fished out the last shuriken-shaped device from his pouch, its design makes it convenient to use but Naruto-kun, why it's made of ceramic? He asked curiously, though he was sure it won't break since Naruto used durability seals on it too. Naruto sighed at that, well for one, I am no smith and I don't have that kind of money to purchase customized shuriken from a blacksmith. Aizen nodded in understanding, I see, is it possible to make this seal work for other elements? Naruto looked thoughtful as he contemplated the query, probably. He decided, I asked Itachi-senpai, since these seals would work better for ninja with fire affinity. I can make this seal to be general so what comes out would be the user's affinity. Though not for earth water may still work, but it's easily more applicable for fire, wind and lightning. He shook his head, that's only in theory though. The Hokage nodded in approval, how about the other seals you used? Itachi-kun. Shisui-kun. Shisui titled his head to the side as he fished out a tag from his pouch. This one he glared at Itachi. Made my feet stick to the ground, very good for trapping unless you face an earth element ninja. He eyed his bare feet in distaste, though if it only get to our feet, anyone can pull lizard-style escape. Itachi shrugged, I have to say that while Shisui is correct, those who are caught unaware would be an easy target even for a few seconds. This seal, Gomjaiman Fuin, sticky ground seal, is good, though the range is poor as it only works on a 3 feet radius from the seal. Naruto sighed at that, actually it depends on how much chakra you put on it, though to be safe I put a limiter symbol on it so that it gets sticky enough to trap people in that small range and last longer. He informed them, it's not an elemental seal anyway, it's a stronger version of the tree climbing exercise on a seal. The old cage muttered in an amused tone. So much room for improvement, especially since the ground looks the same after you applied the seal on it, so unless you have a dijutsu to see chakra, you can't tell there's a trap. Aizen nodded in agreement, this seal works instantaneously the moment it touches the ground, you don't have to stick it, and it's reusable too. He eyed the tag, most of us instinctively move with a chakra boost, thus any body parts where chakra is focused would stick to this like magnet. The blonde boy nodded, I recommend it for trap use, but it needs a lot of chakra to last more than few minutes. But it won't be a problem once someone is trapped in its range, the seal would be powered by the captive's chakra. Naruto informed them, speaking of the poor range, I can provide you one with wider range, but you need more chakra to make it sticky and last longer until it catches your opponent. He muttered as he rummaged through his backpack, and here is the last one I have for today. He muttered and pulled out a flash tag. This one is a flash bomb, but it can last more than 5 minutes and comes in 7 colors. No. He shook his head at the look Sandaime shot him. It's not for pranking. We have to use sunglasses to use it for sure. Shisui quipped with a grin, he was referring to Dijutsu users in general. And a warning that it's not to be used in anywhere near the Uchiha and Hyuga compounds. I concur. Itachi drawled. Sarutobi smiled at that, it seemed Naruto was still a prankster at heart. I will get my Anbu and Oinen to test it. If it works effectively, I would want that for them. Naruto wisely didn't ask how they're going to use it, he just hoped he would never find out if any missing nin that ends up blind because of it. Of course Hokage-sama. He bowed in respect, earning a sad look from Sandaime that disappeared the moment he raised his head. Saratobi cleared his throat. Aizen has voiced his interest in your talent, and I have seen it myself what you could do with modifying basic seals and simple concepts, such as the tree climbing exercise. He pulled a red scroll with golden trimming and the Konoha symbol and handed it to Naruto. You deserve it, Naruto-kun. He said cordially as Naruto accepted the scroll with awe and thinly veiled nervousness. Congratulations, you passed with flying colors. The blonde Jinchuriki held the scroll with trembling hands. While he was confident of his skills, he was still in disbelief that he at last gained the acknowledgement he longed for. Thank you, Hokage-sama. He bowed in respect to the old Kage, then turned to Aizen. It's an honor to learn your art, Aizen-san. I will do my best as your student. Aizen smiled genially. I am looking forward to it, Naruto-kun, and call me Shishu from now on. Hi, Shishu. Naruto obeyed readily. Naratakirama called from the depths of his mind. Yes, Kurama. His Biju would rarely be the first to attempt a conversation. I don't trust this man at all, Kurama growled. I see. Naruto chuckled inwardly. I will be careful, I promise. He glanced to his back, where he could see Itachi's eyes had narrowed at Aizen, only to gaze back to him. He smiled reassuringly to Itachi, then nodded. You're not the only one, my friend. Kurama snorted in disgust. March 7th, 7 years after Yandame's death. Uzumaki Naruto graduated from the academy to be apprenticed under Aizen Sasuke, which marked as a significant turning point in his life. Fifth legacy. Halcyon days. You shall not make an Uzumaki repeat themselves for the third time when it comes to Fuinjutsu. You nod, shut up, and do as they said before they tear you a new mouth for back-talking them in their expertise. Seal masters when dealing with an Uzumaki. Aizen was a pleasant person, at least he painted himself as such. Naruto didn't know why, but he, Kurama, and Itachi were instantly wary of the man. In spite of that, he didn't voice a word of protest when Aizen asked him to move to Fuin Division dormitory. It was just reasonable that a teacher would want his disciple to be contactable anytime and devoted most of their time in their study. Naruto didn't have that much attachment to his old apartment anyway, at the very least the new place wouldn't be devoid of life. And oh boy how wrong he was. The dormitory was located in a tower on the west side of North Forest. Apparently it was pretty close to the city. The dormitory room, or rather an apartment, looked pretty much the same as his old apartment and insultingly larger with queen-size bedroom. The bathroom and kitchen were inside too. The difference was, it looked so bare and needed personal touch. How do you like it, Naruto-kun? Aizen asked as he led the blonde boy to explore his new home. Naruto bobbed his head. I like it. It's bigger than my old place. Which mean it would feel emptier too with only him. But I always thought a dormitory room supposes to be small. Not when it's for the division leader. Aizen informed him. Oh. Naruto paused and stared at the older seal master in shock. Oh, I thought I am going to live alone, so this is your place, Shisu. Aizen shook his head. I have my own house, it's 10 minutes walk from the art tower. I would love to let you live in my home, the Haori-clad shinobi sighed, but higher-ups insist that you've to live here. Apparently he was not the only cautious one of Aizen, which made him wonder why they let Aizen to keep his position at all. He had not heard of Aizen clan, which meant the clan was minor, so it was no reason to fear political backlash or anything alike. Unless upper echelon of their village still trusted the man, and they wanted Naruto to be where they could keep their eyes on. It annoyed him, most of his life had been trailed by Anbu. How much monitoring they needed. Naruto nodded, but I am not sure I should have this place. Nonsense. Aizen drawled, you're used to have a place with bathroom and kitchen, Naruto-kun, so Hokage-sama deemed it prudent. You deserve the same luxury even in dormitory. This place is never used by me, it's better be in use than gathering dust. The blonde boy smiled at that. I promise I will take a good care of this place, Shisu. He beamed. And by the way. Can I paint it orange? He asked cheerfully. Aizen's sweat dropped at him. This is not private property, Naruto-kun, though I think you could pick a more neutral color, a very pale orange maybe. I will ask permission from Hokage-sama for you. Really, Shisu? Naruto beamed at the offer. Thank you. He thanked his master. Aizen just smiled as he bid Naruto goodbye and left the boy to attend his business in his office. Naruto waved at retreating Aizen cheerily. See you around, Shisu. As soon as Aizen was out of his sight he closed the door and his eyes narrowed. That man is full of bullshit. Kurama growled. Ask Hokage-sama for you, you could ask that old man yourself. He sounds like he is going to do a favor for you. Naruto sighed as he began to unload books from the box. Well, kids normally won't notice when adult is bullshitting them. And he seems to be set on making me fond of him. The demon fox snorted on his DREAM, but still, do you think this is a wise decision? Haven't you learned that naivety could get you killed? The blonde boy clenched his teeth, his finger pushed the book to straighten the row. Hiragi Jaichin, the man who changed my life, in spite of everything I owe him. I can't hate him, not when he gave up his life research for me. I don't know what he was thinking, but should I care? He wondered in somber tone. To a seal master, what he has given to me is like a shinobi giving up both of his hands. And argue with you there, but still. We were so lucky he didn't mess you up. Hi, but you know Hiragi Jaichin is probably not in this world anymore, regardless of his original intention to me is good or bad. Kurama had told him that the man had received a full blast of exposure to Kurama's demonic chakra. A normal human would have went mad and committed suicide or died an instant. I owe him, that's all in it. As far as I'm concerned he probably Naruto trailed off as he put the last book on the shelves. The only human who ever gave me something without nothing on him in return. Okage's kindness to him might be out of genuine love to him like a grandfather would their grandson, but in the same time it was also a duty. He was the Jinchuriki of Konoha after all. Even this opportunity to further his study was partly for Konoha. Tori cared about him, but the Anbu's protection was a duty too. And Itachi he was not sure, but when it comes to the older boy he could safely say their friendship based on their understanding of each other's standing. Itachi was the prodigy who shouldered his clan's pride on his young shoulder, while he was aware of how his clan slowly descended to the path of no return. While Naruto was a sacrifice for the village and betrayed by them, ironically it was after they knew what he had done for them. They were both aware of how foolish human could be once consumed by hatred. Sometimes Naruto wondered if he was indeed a prodigy, a genius as they called him. If what it takes to be a genius was to know why everyone else was idiot, it was both a curse and blessing. A blessing to know you're not an idiot and a curse to know you're living among idiots. He wisely discarded the thought because it seemed Itachi was rubbing off on him. Uchiha compound. Uchiha Sasuke could shamelessly admit he loved his big brother more than he did his parents. It was ironic that while the whole clan pressured him to be as good as Itachi, his big brother was the one who protected him from the said pressure. It was really stressful for a young boy like Sasuke to live under the shadow of such a talented older brother, and he sought comfort from his brother and mother whenever he could. His brother was always busy since he started working as an Anbu, so every second he could get from Itachi was precious. He went home in hurry because it was the day Itachi promised to let Sasuke watching his training with kunai and shuriken. Much to his disappointment Itachi was not home yet. "Ha-san." Sasuke called his mother who was busy unloading her groceries from plastic bag. "Where's Nai-san?" he asked impatiently as he pulled one of the chair and pushed himself up to sit. Makoto paused her work. "Oh, he went to Minechika-san's place he should be back soon. He has been away for 2 hours, it shouldn't take so long." Sasuke blinked owlishly as he processed what his mother said. "Minechika-san? I thought Nai-san just restocked his weapon supply last week." Itachi was always took a good care of his weapons, so usually it lasted longer. It didn't make sense his brother needed to buy anything from the blacksmith. The Uchiha matriarch titled her head to the side thoughtfully. "Well apparently when he restocked his weaponry last week, he also ordered something from Minechika-san and he went to pick it up today." She explained as she finished putting the groceries on their fridge. "Oh." Sasuke hummed excitedly. "Did Nai-san ordered some cool weapons?" he asked childishly. "I did not." Sasuke almost jumped on his seat, then turned around to face his big brother. Itachi looked pretty amused by his reaction, judging from small smile on his lips. "Nai-san. You startled me." Itachi shrugged. "Today Mika-san." Sasuke poked Sasuke on the forehead as he walked past, earning a pout from his little brother. "More vigilant next time." Itachi lifted his right hand, holding up a plastic bag. "Uruchi-basan gave me some anpan and curry bread from their bakery." Makoto smiled at that, she mentally noted to thank the old couple the next time she saw them. "That's very nice of them." Sasuke turned to his brother. "So what did you get from Minechika-san, Nai-san?" he asked curiously. "You will see it later." Itachi promised with a glint on his eyes. Sasuke watched in awe as his brother showed him a custom-made shuriken, which just poofed out from a storage scroll. Unlike normal shuriken, the tips were tapered to a diamond-shaped hole, runes carved on its metallic body, with an elegantly written for Hono on the center. The next projectile Itachi set beside the custom-made shuriken was a slip of paper. Itachi chuckled amusedly at Sasuke's confusion. "Let's see these in action shall we?" he said as he led Sasuke to the nearest clearing. The younger brother looked confused when Itachi took out a wooden dummy out of the scroll. Unlike one he saw on training ground, this one was not made of hay, but wood, which make it look like a puppet. He had seen something alike in bookstore, one that used as model for painter to draw human. This one was big, a head taller than Sasuke. Itachi placed a tag on its head, the tag also had difficult-looking rune with O for breath in the center. Sasuke couldn't help but gaped when he saw the 5 feet wooden dummy suddenly came alive and looked like it was running for its life from them. The way it moved was awkward and frantic and looked more like bouncing instead of running. After it reached certain distance from them it was running in circle around the training ground like a headless chicken. Sasuke was really disturbed by how creepy it looked. "I am not sure that's on purpose." Itachi wasn't disturbed by its frantic bouncing, even when Sasuke flinched at the puppet's head 180 degrees turn. "Nai-san." Sasuke almost whimpered, "It's dancing." Itachi only raised an eyebrow when the puppet started dancing ballet, and it was horrendous. Then again the puppet was no Billy Elliot. Sasuke really started to whimper when the said puppet jumped in the air with its hand stretched out like it was trying to fly. If this is his idea of joke, it's really a poor taste. Itachi craned his neck, but it seems to be a workable puppet for practice dummy. The Uchiha prodigy stepped forward before he dived to a full sprint towards his target. From the corner of his eyes he saw his father approach Sasuke. Fugaku had came to watch his training it seemed. He paid the spectators no mind as he threw the custom-made shuriken to the puppet. Fire came alive and encased the shuriken. It looked like a disc of fire cutting through the puppet, dodged the coming fiery projectile with jumping high to the air, the legs disturbingly parted in 180 degrees in the mid-air. However, it wasn't fast enough when it jumped, so the tip of its feet were torched. Itachi didn't even pause when the puppet landed on its burning feet and started to spin around. Shuriken encased in fire. Fugaku murmured, ignoring his youngest son who at some point had clung to his pants. He couldn't blame Sasuke, the dancing puppet was a pretty disturbing sight for a child. It's like a more advanced version of our Housenkan no Jutsu. Itachi started to corner the puppet with a fire of wall, dodging spinning kick from the burning wooden feet in the process. Interesting. Sasuke gulped, Nai-san is so fast. But how that shuriken can sprout fire even though Nai-san didn't burn them? He asked curiously. Fuin Jutsu, Fugaku answered in solemn tone. The shuriken is imbued with Itachi's fire nature chakra, while the rune functioned to shape and manipulate it to produce the same effect as Housenkan no Jutsu. Shisui had told him about the Minato son, and the latest achievement of the budding prodigy of Seal Master, the boy was truly their son. Oh, Fugaku really hoped they could have adopted Minato's son, but that would be soundly rejected by Sandaime and his cronies. He also didn't want to add oil to the fire, considering their position now. While it was true Sharingan was probably the only thing left in the world that could control Kyuubi, everyone seemed to conveniently forgot his family's relationship with Yondaime's. He would sooner cut his own hand than letting his clan to harm Minato's family. The village could accuse Uchiha all they wanted and conveniently forgot that Makoto was Kushina's best friend and he was Minato's childhood friend and second cousin. The latter was not even a public secret, while it was not well known. One of his mother's cousin married an Namikaze and had Minato. Minato's mother had recessive gene of Uchiha, and Namikaze was actually an offshoot of Senju, which was why Minato looked nothing like an Uchiha save the shark shape of his eyes, which was not that noticeable in the first place. Uzumaki Naruto was also very unlikely to develop Sharingan, considering Minato married an Uzumaki, a family line which was another offshoot of Senju, diluting the Uchiha blood even further. Aside of the blood relationship, they also forgot how crushed Minato was when Obito was killed, and how Minato had kneeled in front of him to apologize for his nephew's death. Hada Kakashi was still alive, and breathing was also thanks to Minato. The clan was furious about Kakashi's Sharingan, but they honored Obito's last wish. Not to mention Minato didn't need their petty anger on Kakashi, well he already had enough on his plate. Even in politics standpoint, without their blood relation thrown in the mix, it didn't make sense for Uchiha to want Minato dead. Minato was the only Hokage after Sandaime who treated them fairly. Fugaku suspected all relationships his family had with Yondaime's was hushed out by Sandaime and his teammates. His blood relation was probably hushed out the moment Minato took his Hokage mantle. None of them noticed that time because war just ended and Konoha experienced the worst economic crisis since the First Great War. Minato was busy to stabilize their village and getting used to his new position, while Fugaku and police corps were busy to suppress raising criminality in Konoha's civilian populace. None of them realized what the old cronies did on their back. When he thought of it again, it might be not Sandaime, the old man was too busy to grieve over his wife's and Minato's death. His teammates, however, recalling those old fools had time to smear his clan's name in the worst moment possible made his blood boil. They could afford to hate the Jinchuriki in their midst and one of the founding clans. Sometimes Fugaku wondered if Konoha deserved Uchiha and Minato's legacy at all. Fugaku? I am going to name my son, Naruto. Minato informed him cheerfully. Fugaku's left eye twitched. What did I tell you about letting Kushina to name your child? Not after that ramen topping, of course. I named him after the main character of Jiraiya-sensei's novel. Not a smutty kind, of course. Minato informed, looked pretty offended that Fugaku thought Kushina's ramen obsession would make his beautiful wife naming their son after the food. The Uchiha clan head rubbed his temple. Even better, the name is from Jiraiya-sama. He is a great shinobi, but oh come on. My sensei is not that bad. Minato protested. Fugaku snorted, I arrested him 3 times for this week alone for peeping. Oh okay, he is bad, I admit. Minato swallowed heavily. This is why I want to speak to you initially. The 3rd time he was caught this week, which was this afternoon. My wife and yours were in hot spring for their pregnancy exercise. Fugaku growled out. Want to help me kill my Iro-sensei? Minato offered generously. Of course. Do-san. Itachi called. Yugaku was snapped out of his thought, his eyes drawn by Itachi's stiff stance and Sasuke who had cowered behind his brother. He had been leaking killer intent when he was lost in memory it seemed. I am fine now Itachi, Sasuke it's been a hard day. He narrowed his eyes at Itachi. About your new friend Itachi. The older son stiffened. Yes. Cherish him Itachi he drawled, as my son, you should do better than I did. That Itachi could correct his mistake and their son's bond won't be severed by negligence like what happened between him and Minato. Itachi was stunned by the order and marveled if there's no hidden intention in his father's voice. Yes father. He couldn't give Minato's son a family, but he would be damned if he even couldn't give a friend to Naruto. Once he was apprenticed, he was given a new place to call a technical home and a new set of clothes. It was not a shirt or pants he usually wore, but some sort of double-layered kimono, which only as long as a normal shirt, the sleeve was long but not wider than normal sleeve-like kimono. The outer kimono-like shirt was white with one thick orange stripe on chest part, while the inner was orange. The pants was short and came in darker shade of orange. Instead of standard ninja shoes he was given a pair of black jikatabi, traditional Japanese socks. The footwear felt awkward at first, but it was comfortable and he really liked the traditional sock though not the Jetta since it was too noisy. He liked the softness of their soles. This gave him tactile contact with the ground and lets him use his feet more agilely than rigid-soled shoes. He could use it in practice once he learned how to create durability seal for cloth. Kurama generously informed him that it looked exactly like clothes Uzumaki Mito gave to her son. Which not surprising since it came from Yuzurishi Agakure and must had a preservation seal sewn on it. Naruto was not sure what to think when Hokage gave him the clothes but didn't say anything about it other than it was a gift. He sometimes wondered how undeserving he was that not even a drop of information about his legacy was given to him. He didn't ask for much, a few sentences about Uzumaki clan he could find himself in library would be good enough. He wondered why he kept hoping that one day Jai-chan would indulge him at least a little about his legacy to assure him he was not an unwanted trash nobody wanted. Scrolls. Books. Lots of it. Shisui shook his head as he eyed Naruto's shelves in distaste. No wonder majority of shinobi population thinks you guys from Fuin division are scholars and not ninja. Naruto wondered why Itachi thought bringing Shisui to his place was a good idea. Shisui. The older boy insisted he drop the honorific with a promise Shisui wouldn't call him Naruto-chan anymore. Put that scroll back and here I thought uchiha are clans who value brain over brawl. Shisui raised an eyebrow, so we're smart naturally, but so you know I don't read scrolls to study jutsu. We have instructor and Sharingan for that. I think Naruto-kun is talking about how our Sharingan helps our fighting style to be efficient, which involves strategic thinking instead of brute force. Itachi joined in after he took another sip of his green tea. The Shusen expert scoffed, my best record when fighting an enemy ninja is with Shunshining right on my enemy's blind spot and roasted him with a kaiten. Just 3 minutes. Like cup noodle. He boasted proudly. Did you just tell me that Naruto trailed off, setting your enemy on fire is more effective than your prized jutsu? Naruto asked incredulously. He huffed, we're pyromaniac at heart. Shisui declared proudly. Sharingan tend to make you overthinking in battle, while the simplest solution bring faster result. Which mean while Sharingan helps us to predict and counter Nin, Gen and Tai, it's not efficient without enough brain to back it up, so Shisui resort is prone to shunsen and roast anything in his path. Itachi explained in deadpan tone. Shisui glared at his least favorite cousin, oh I. Naruto nodded sagely, I see. No you did not. The older Uchiha growled. Itachi sighed, by the way Naruto-kun, I tested the Nenshu Shuriken, burning throwing star, yesterday with that puppet seal you gave me. Naruto's eyes lightened up at that, oh. How is it? Did both work properly? I guess the Nenshu Shuriken works well, as for your puppet seal. The Uchiha prodigy titled his head to the side, define properly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his fellow prodigy, huh? 20 minutes later in the nearest training ground Naruto and Shisui watched in horror as the puppet executed 32 fouettes and turned before it bounced like a rabbit in heat. Aizen who was watching beside Naruto clapped cheerily. Itachi looked indifferent by the puppet though if you watched closely you could see his left eyebrow twitched by 2 millimeters. Shisui regretted drawing Mito Guy's face on it, well it was creepy enough when the puppet's face was blank, the thick eyebrow, the eyelashes and the wide smile made the show look straight from the worst realm of insanity. It was pretty funny at first, Shisui conceded, but now it was just plain creepy and disturbing. The spell of silence hung heavily in the air save Aizen's clapping, it was Shisui who found his voice first. No wonder little Sasuke is traumatized. He murmured, Naruto, even I have to admit it's not funny. Uchiha Shisui told him, in a voice that suggested his brain was broken. Naruto gaped like a goldfish at them, and for a moment of broken-mindedness, they stared at each other but I didn't mean it to do that. That he stammered, I was just trying to modify standard puppet seal Ryudo and clan used. so it could move more fluidly and not so stiff like one the original clan used on training post. He growled testily. Aizen smiled at his disciple, he looked bemused by the whole ordeal. The puppet did move fluidly now Naruto-kun. He beamed. Not that kind of fluid. Naruto exclaimed in horror, he was about to correct his teacher but lost control of his jaw when he saw it. The moment the puppet jumped and doing a full leg splits in midair, which put too much strain on its hip joint and its left leg fell out. The puppet landed on its right leg and started to spin again, while its left leg went flying and stuck on the wall, missing Naruto's cheek by 1 inch. Naruto regained his control as he put his jaw back up. He grabbed the stray leg, then threw the leg to the puppet with deadly accuracy. The puppet was struck by its own leg on chest part and was sent sprawling to the ground. Naruto then turned his attention at the two dumbfounded Uchiha beside him. Itachi, Shisui. The two Uchihas turned their attention to the Uzumaki. Burn it. He ordered in commanding tone, it was not a request. Itachi and Shisui didn't know why, but for a moment they feared for their life of what Naruto would do if they didn't do as he said. It was Aizen who interrupted their train of thought, Naruto-kun. Don't be so hasty, it's not that bad. Naruto was not convinced, burn it Dadabayo. He repeated icily, his blue eyes never left the abomination. Aizen was quickly reminded of one thing his late teacher who was lucky enough to know Mito-sama had warned him about Uzumaki. There was one warning all seal masters who had ever known an Uzumaki personally would always say. You shall not make an Uzumaki repeat themselves for the third time when it comes to Fuinjutsu, you nod, shut up, and do as they said before they tear you a new mouth for back-talking them in their expertise. Itachi-kun. Shisui-kun. Quick. Aizen pressed the two Uchihas on. Burn it. Do as Naruto-kun said. Itachi and Shisui decided that they didn't want to know why Aizen suddenly started singing different tune, so they went to the puppet in record time and turned it to firewood with Kakakyu no Jutsu. Naruto trotted to the fire and threw all identical seal with one on the puppet he had on his person to the fire. Itachi and Shisui looked at the Uzumaki in bewilderment then to the burning puppet and tags. Naruto smiled eerily at the occupant of the training ground, a smile that was known as Uzumaki's trademark smile, that said as a sign for flee on sight in the first Great Shinobi War when an Uzumaki was pissed. Especially when the verbal tick came out from their mouth. He had been pretty confused why Naruto didn't have Uzumaki main family's verbal tick, a tick they spouted when being emotional. Uzumakis usually were very emotional when they were young, most calmed down when they reached adulthood, and the verbal tick came out only when they were pissed off or excited. They were no natural disaster when pissed even without Biju. We never see this. He decided in resolute voice. We didn't see anything, Dadabayo. He chirped cheerfully. He decided to just pretend that the abomination never exists, thought in disbelief. But of course no one dared to protest, of course Naruto-kun. Aizen agreed readily, and Shisui wondered why Sandaime assigned a man without a backbone to tutor a freaking Uzumaki. Actually Shisui worried about nothing, as when it comes to Fuinjutsu, Aizen was a competent teacher. So this symbol represents propagation. Aizen muttered as he expertly finished the last stroke for Okra of Kumo on the scroll. Aizen's writing was smoother and somewhat had a slight overt flourishes. Unlike Naruto's writing, which was simple, written as precisely as he could and sometimes sloppy because of inexperience. And this is symbol of tranquility which represented by Igrav aim, rain blessed shower from the sky. Naruto nodded as he copied the alphabet to his scroll, why the first layer high-level seal that direct chakra used weather. I always wonder why all seal Naruto had created so far was simpler in nature, well creative the level was only Seer Aizen had evaluated his skill and decided it was time to teach Naruto components for higher rank seal. Naruto had a very strong basic skill, but his experience was limited to lower rank seal like explosion tag and flash tag. Aizen tapped his finger, because high-level seal is very volatile most of the time, and while sometimes an unstable seal works, it's better to be stable. And for that we need harmony which is what weather symbol we're part of. The nature itself is the personification of harmony earth. Aizen lowered his hand as his right palm faced the ground. And the sky. His left palm was upward, facing the ceiling of their study room. Azure eyes trailed up and down, absorbing knowledge his teacher gave him like sponge. Harmony. Aizen nodded, higher world is made of harmony of sky and earth. He cleared his throat, it said that the sage of Sixth Path's greatest technique used the concept of yin and yang, in which he created the world we live in. So he is a god? Naruto asked curiously, ignoring Kurama's mental snicker because Naruto knew the answer. Close. Aizen corrected, it's not like he created the world from scratch, more like creating the order for the new world with knowledge about chakra. A gift human foolishly abused with slaughter throughout the century. Kurama growled out, old man would have turning on his grave if he had one. A wise decision in his part, Kurama thought. Unfortunately I can't argue with that. Naruto thought forlornly. Maybe one day human could escape from this loop. Who knows? Uzumaki-sama. Naruto turned his head to the side. A boy who was Shisui's age was holding a tray of snack and steaming tea. You and Aizen Taichu have been studying for hours. I presume you would like a refreshment. He had short pale sandy blonde hair and grayish blue eyes. His skin was fair and he had a distinct short eyebrow that almost resembled short tip of brush. He was wearing a dark gray kimono that parted until his chest and abdomen were wrapped in bandage. "Ah, Takusa-kun." Aizen called, and from the corner of his eyes, Naruto could tell the slight twitch on his master's eye, voiced displeasure that Takusa had clearly put Aizen was below Naruto in status. Naruto always felt nervous whenever Takusa or anyone from the boys' clan, the Shiomitsus, were with him when Aizen was in vicinity. Takusa was part of a seal master clan who specialize in weaponized application, meaning they used seals to enhance weapon, thus they were also a clan of blacksmith. Shiomitsu clan by any means was not hostile. In fact, Naruto was pretty unnerved when he was introduced to the rest of the tower member. Shiomitsu clans looked very close to prostrate themselves on the floor on the side of him. Naruto's paranoia came back threefold when he realized that for unknown reason, he was stuck in some sort of political struggle in the tower between Takusa's clan and Aizen's subordinates. At first he thought he could just mind his business and let them sort the problem themselves. But no, for some reason their problem centered on him. Shiomitsu clan had unofficially assigned Takusa to be Naruto's retainer, and how insistent they were leave no room for argument. The next thing Naruto knew, both sides never leave him alone with someone from their opposition. If Naruto was studying with Aizen, Takusa would somehow there to study on his own of bringing refreshment. Well, it didn't bother him that much, he was not used to be the center of attention, especially when Aizen and Takusa discreetly glaring at each other. Aizen might be the head of the tower, but apparently he didn't have complete control over everyone, especially Shiomitsu clan. Naruto guessed it was like Senju Uchiha thing, since from what read in record, clans and families that involved in tower were always the same from generation to generation since Uzumaki Mido's founding of the division. He just hoped it was not centered on him for whatever wacky reason they had other than he was related to their founder, and it won't end up anywhere as badly as Senju Uchiha 1. Uzumaki-sama. Takusa chirped. Naruto paused in mid of stirring his tea. "Ah yes, Takusa. What is it?" He had learned to speak very carefully when these two were in the same room. Especially when Aizen had his katana with him and Takusa had his glove on his belt. No fight broke yet, but it was clear with them carrying it around they were not above using it. "Akure Shisu found the reference scroll you wanted," he informed the blonde boy excitedly. "There's a couple of interesting scrolls in our family achieve we think would help in your next project too." Naruto beamed at that. "Ah, I see then." Aizen chose that moment to cut in. "There's sample of grade A ink arrived recently, we should try it. And I am sure in my family achieve we have better reference scroll." "Oh, shit." Naruto started to sweat under their intense gaze. Aizen seemed like he didn't realize his pleasant mentor mask was slipping whenever a Shiomitsu was in vicinity. "Tomorrow morning I have a training session with Itachi and Shisui." Naruto didn't miss the flinch on Takusa's face when he mentioned his Uchiha friends. It seemed Shiomitsu clan didn't like Uchiha and Shisui almost kidnapped him, so Takusa won't follow them to training ground. Naruto had to beg for Takusa to leave him with the Uchihas and assured the boy he was completely safe with Itachi and Shisui. Itachi, who was the more diplomatic one of the two, even offered to swear an oath of protection, which soundly refused by Naruto because Itachi had nothing to prove to his unofficial retainer. Takusa in the end relented, but he still had a glare match with Shisui whenever the two met face to face. "From there Takusa's home is closer, so I will go to your place first." Takusa nodded happily. "On the way back to tower I will walk past Shisu's place, and Shisu usually will be at home around 6, right?" Aizen nodded. "Yes. I will be there then." Naruto caught Takusa looked at him pleadingly and he knew the teen wanted to follow him to Aizen's. Considering he would be in Takusa's before Aizen's and how the Shiomitsu clan was going to beg for the same thing later with Takusa. He added reluctantly. Naruto closed his eyes and pretended he didn't hear the snapping sound of calligraphy brush. Yep. It was just the third brush for this week. The next day, he looks like a walking dead man. Shisui commented as he and Itachi walked the blonde to their favorite training ground. Naruto glared at Shisui heatedly. "I am sorry if I spent 2 months indoor." He drawled sardonically and the stupid politics struggle didn't help. "Kami. My whole body feels heavy like lead. Even if other seal masters in the tower likes indoor so much, I honestly don't." After spending a few weeks with Shisui, Naruto could say there's no harm to act like himself. Shisui was too hot-headed and carefree to plot anything traitorous, and his personality made him a pleasant person to be around and a convenient target to butt head with. Shisui lifted his hands in placating gesture, he didn't to be a target for Uzumaki's ire. He would have pity that wooden puppet if it was alive, which is why it was very lucky to be dead. "No need to be so pissy, Naruto, can't you ask Aizen Dono to take your lessons outside once in a while?" Itachi and Naruto whipped their heads at his direction so fast that he thought their neck was going to snap. Are you nuts? They ask in disbelief. The Shushin expert raised an eyebrow. What's wrong with my suggestion? I told you I am starting on experimental seal. One I make from scratch. Naruto informed him, doing it outside is like sticking an explosion tag on my face. The older Uchiha titled his head to the side. How come? Itachi face-palmed, then again he didn't expect Shisui to learn at least the basic safety procedure of Fuinjutsu when he could. Naruto-kun, just tell him why it's a suicidal idea. Naruto sighed, first of all Fuinjutsu is a very volatile art when it comes to experimenting the creation. Naruto waved his finger to emphasize his point, when we tried to make a new seal, we need a lot of preparations to make sure we have made every possible safety measures we could. Since Fuinjutsu can be affected by a lot of things if you're not careful. He craned his neck to the side, especially for a disciple like me who just started. He pointed to his face, I need to set up special barrier seal, the same one we have in Chakra's sterile room in the tower. It's meant to help isolate the chosen space from ambient chakra in nature, so that Fuinjutsu performed in the middle isn't affected by the environment. Unlike other shinobi arts, the process of chakra molding happen outside of our body, so it could be affected by nature chakra. Naruto huffed. Oh, so that's why, Shisui said flatly. If Naruto was to judge, he'd say his explanation didn't rate very highly on a scale of usefulness in Shisui's book. The young seal master shook his head, there's no way Shisui will let me to take lessons outside, especially at this time of the year. This time of the year? Shisui repeated. While Itachi's eyes lightened up in cognizance. Ah, I see, Oben is next week, right? The curly-haired Uchiha crossed his arms, now you lost me, why Fuinjutsu have anything to do with ghosts visiting our house? Naruto sweat dropped at him, aren't you a pretty good censor shinobi, Shisui? Yeah? Itachi and Naruto looked at each other, then Itachi spoke out their query. Don't you feel different when it's around this time of the year? Feels like it's harder to sense people chakra and how the air feels heavy. Shisui looked thoughtful before he answered. Kind of, but I thought it's because the heat. Itachi's left eye twitched, at this time of the year nature chakra is on its peak, Konoha's nature energy become comparable even to sacred place like Mambakuzen. It's a very dangerous time to attempt untested Fuinjutsu outside of controlled environment. He explained in solemn tone. But if you're good and you're attempting nature-based seal it's the best time of the year for you. Naruto added with a grin. Oh, that's why Shisui hummed as he eyed Naruto skeptically, but still, you have no plan to root in the tower like your fellow seal masters. Naruto nodded at that, you need to move more, I see you managed to keep yourself from becoming stiff with stretching and light exercise, but it won't be enough to keep your body in top shape. Itachi nodded, I have to agree with Shisui on this Naruto-kun, can't you arrange so you can squeeze some time for Taijutsu practice at least? Naruto groaned, I wish I could. For one, you need more sun. Shisui quipped, do you know that the lack of exposure to sun could cause depression? The blonde scoffed, I don't need sun as much as I need more of me. What? Shisui drawled. Naruto rolled his eyes, I wish I can split myself so I can study seals and training physical stuff in the same time. He said wishfully, and then maybe Aizen's men and Takusa's clan would stop. He had no wish to be disputed over in the tower as bone on contention. He raised an eyebrow at the intense stare Itachi and Shisui gave him. Considering Uchiha had sharp jet black eyes, it was pretty unnerving. Why are you looking at me like that? Itachi and Shisui turned their attention to each other, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Shisui asked with a grin. Itachi nodded, most likely. The Shushin expert grinned then turned to Naruto, Itachi looked at him with stoic face, but Naruto could see there's the same strange glint in their jet black eyes. Have you heard of Kage Bunshin, Naruto-kun? He asked, rubbing his hands together with a grin on his face. Shisui was bristling as he watched 5 blonde clones toddled above the water surface, 3 on the 3, and the other 2 were reading scrolls. 10 at once. And he did it as easy as breathing. HN. Itachi nodded. I can only do 2. And that will leave me winded for the rest of the day. He ranted in frustrated tone. Itachi shrugged, HN. Shisui gave his cousin a side glance, he didn't even use his tenant right. I can't feel demon chakra at all, he is a natural chakra powerhouse even without it. HN. Natural for an Uzumaki I guess. Shisui added tiredly. I wish I have that much chakra to throw around. You know the real Uzumaki called them from his perch on the tree, I can't hear your conversation from here, but I can tell Itachi only said HN to you in response, and yet you converse as if he gave you a complete sentence. He pointed out with dumbfounded face, I thought HN is some sort of stock response you guys give whenever you don't have anything else to say. Shisui snorted, there's a broad meaning in the HN of Uchiha. Itachi rolled his eyes as he walked closer to Naruto while Shisui continued his postponed reading of the fire jutsu scroll on his lap. Basically what you said, I didn't feel like replying Shisui. The Uchiha prodigy said. It's a habit that plagued Uchiha like a curse. Naruto rolled his eyes then whispered, tapping his belly discreetly. Apparently the curse have been for generations since the genesis of Shinobi World. I don't think it's genetic like Uzumaki verbal tic, but more like kids miming their parent kind of thing, so he took a deep breath. If I ever grunt like you do in your vicinity, please whack me on the head as hard as you can. Because my tenant don't want me to pick up any Uchiha's habit at all, and you know how racist he was. Itachi nodded, at any rate about Kage Bunshin's memory advantage, if you, I know. Naruto cut him off. It's about my psychological age, isn't it? Uchiha nodded again, it seemed after they showed him how to do Kage Bunshin a day before Naruto had researched the jutsu himself. Naruto had a paranoia of a seasoned Anbu, cautious and alert to his surrounding even in his sleep. Itachi acknowledged that as part of physiology wound, the years of negligence had brought upon the young Jinchuriki. Kage Bunshin at first seemed to be an innocent solution to Naruto's problem. It was not until Shisui finished showing Naruto the hand seal that the consequences crashed on his mind. Kage Bunshin's memory would be transferred to the user, which making it an excellent espionage tool when used right and free risk, aside from chakra drain. However, when a chakra powerhouse like Naruto used it, there's no way Naruto wouldn't abuse the technique. It was not a wrong thing to do though, since it was like saying abusing Sharingan's copy ability is wrong. Naruto however had matured psychologically beyond his age, Kage Bunshin would make the maturing process faster. Naruto still had childish tendency once in a while, but at this rate Naruto would lose that little innocence he had left. Itachi always saw Naruto as a friend and painfully aware it was not as a younger friend but someone equal. It won't be a bad thing per se if Naruto was already wearing a headband and older. Naruto was the same age as Sasuke, but after their first meeting that simple fact never crossed Itachi's mind. At one point Itachi forgot this boy was 4 years younger than him like Sasuke was and not fellow shinobi his age. And yet, boy Itachi. He was snapped out of his thought when he felt a fist drilling to his left temple playfully. Naruto was hanging from a branch upside down with his fist on Itachi's temple. What are you doing? Naruto sighed, crossing his arms. Don't overthinking it. He warned him, you always do that. It's no wonder you have stress lines under your eyes already when you haven't even hit puberty yet. Itachi stared at Naruto in disbelief, his younger friend always said the strangest thing out of nowhere and bluntly. What do you know about puberty? Naruto tapped his chin, then looked at Shisui who was practicing his Kaiten technique. What Shisui is going through for one, and no thanks to my tenant to tell me what is it and that I could find a book about it if I am curious. He shook his head, that teach me for being too curious. Itachi just smiled at that, I see. There's no use to cry over spilled milk. Naruto muttered as Itachi looked up at him. In the first place he closed his eyes, I have little choice when it comes to my life since the day I was born, even entering Ninja Academy is not my choice. Eh? Naruto smiled bitterly, I am an orphan, there's little choices to survive, and my heritage and status are assets Konoha won't ever let go. The very same reason he was enrolled early like Naruto to academy, brimming potential they couldn't afford to waste while the child had no say in the matter. Ah I see. Naruto waved his finger warningly, what did I say about stressing your mind over little things? One in the past nonetheless. Naruto huffed, we're prodigies right. That what they said at least. He grumbled under his breath, well we do have the brain power, it's not necessarily the wisdom to put it to good use, we still have a long future ahead. Just take it in stride, shall we? Naruto hopped off of his perch and landed beside Itachi. Beside you'll be with me to face it, wouldn't you? His lips curved up to a small and barely noticeable smile, one Naruto had seen a couple of times which speak louder than anything. Of course. Naruto thought his halcyon days won't end so soon that he was never willing to let it go. What if Naruto has ancestor of Uchiha legacy? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.